In a city consumed by flames, a young woman paused her battle to speak to her friend Hyun-soo. Listen carefully. If I can't make it back, use this chance to return to the starting point. The girl opened her inventory and handed something to her friend. The item she handed him was a branch with a melted clock, an item called distorted time, which could only be used once, causing a critical error in the flow of time and sending the user back to the past. Not wanting to believe she was saying goodbye, he asked why she had given him the item. The girl ignored the question, commenting, "You and Naiva, you two really suit each other. She was your first constellation, right? Don't give up, so let's stop here. Remember, if you go to the past, pray to me and bring him back." The girl wanted that in her next life, her first constellation would be the one to pray so they could fight properly. Confused, Hyun-soo asked why she was talking about a next life. The girl kept talking, planning that in her next life she would be able to climb at least 20 floors with the wish she had made. Hyun-soo, not understanding, asked her to at least explain the plan. However, the young woman just smiled. "Don't worry, Appa. Trust me, I'll come back safely." Even knowing it was a lie that she wouldn't come back, she said her goodbyes. "See you soon." Hyun-soo would regret letting her go for not holding on to her as long as he could, because Hyun Rabin's last farewell promise was not kept. One day, while construction workers were working, a portal appeared in the sky. Paying no attention to the portal, they watched a girl who seemed to be working hard. However, one of the workers commented that she worked at the potion factory, so she was usually diligent anyway. Even so, the worker called out to the girl, "Rabin, work smart, not hard." The girl, upon hearing the advice, waved to the pair of workers. "You saw how hard I work, so give me a bonus." 5 years before this scene took place, countless portals had appeared and monsters had invaded Earth. At the same time, people known as Awakened began to appear. When they fought against monsters, they were called hunters. Because of this, the existence of social classes based on work, education, and family support disappeared. Only the hunters began to prosper in society. But this had nothing to do with certain people. Even with the change in the structure of society, the gap between rich and poor still existed. Those who had not awakened had to make a living by doing portal cleaning jobs or working in potion factories. The girl named Hyun Rabin was also one of these people. While she was drinking water, one of the workers asked if she had received the message sent earlier. Saying she had been busy, Rabin asked what it was about. Opening a notification window, the worker revealed that the portal would close soon, so it was better to leave the area. Being advised to pay more attention to notifications, Rabin apologized. "I'll be more careful next time." The girl was extremely frustrated. She didn't understand why she was the only one who didn't have a stats window, system windows, alerts, or anything like that. Even though she was a player like everyone else, those things never appeared for her. Constantly, she had to pretend to see a system window, even though she wasn't awakened, fearing she wouldn't be able to get other jobs. After taking the monster carcasses outside, the workers said their goodbyes to each other. As Rabin slung her bag over her shoulder, she said goodbye, but before leaving, she asked the senior if he had seen a certain person. Asking if she was talking about her own brother, the man said that if he saw him, he would let her know. Under the afternoon sun, Hyun Rabin checked the job fees for the next day on her phone. Even though she wasn't awakened, Hyun Rabin had to juggle 2 or 3 jobs for a reason. 5 years ago, after being caught in a portal accident, Rabin lost her parents and her brother disappeared. Because of that, she had to leave school to earn money and survive. She was constantly trying to buy information from hunters to find her brother, so no matter how much she worked, it was never enough. Looking at her apartment from a distance, she complained angrily, "The house is unnecessarily big." Rabin could have sold the house earlier and moved into a studio apartment. However, she couldn't leave that place behind because she was still waiting for her brother to return. Such hopes were starting to drive her crazy. She hoped that one day she would be able to stop with this foolishness. The world had changed, but her house remained the same. Rabin wanted to believe that she would be welcomed home by her family when she returned. She pictured her father having tea and welcoming her, just as her mother prepared food with a smile. She even imagined her brother eating pizza and leaving leftovers for her. Her brother shone in her thoughts. "Ah, I ate all the leftovers in the fridge too because I got hungry." When Rabin returned home, she froze upon seeing her brother sitting on the sofa talking about pizza. That wasn't just a thought, it was real. She wondered if she was hallucinating, talking to herself, if she had finally gone mad. Rabin jumped on her brother, grabbing him. "Are you really Hyun-soo?" The young man smiled confidently. "Then it was worth coming back home. My beloved sister welcomed me so passionately." Rabin lifted her brother up, asking why he was home after disappearing for 5 years. She kept yelling, arguing with her brother for not contacting anyone, but soon noticed something. Grabbing her brother's shirt, Rabin realized that the fabric was highly expensive. She became irritated. "You won't fool my eyes with casual clothes. That stitching, those details, and even the hidden tag on the shirt. This is a shirt from Elemis's special casual collection, made for double S-rank hunters." Hyun-soo was shocked to be found out by his sister. Still surprised, Hyun Rabin asked if her brother had awakened. Hyun-soo tried to dodge his sister's question, but she pressed on. She wanted to know if he was working as a hunter. Hyun-soo had to face his sister, saddened that she had never heard anything, always believing he had completely disappeared. Thinking about what his sister had done, Hyun-soo revealed that he had already requested the cancellation of the search mission she had initiated to find him. Hyun Rabin put her hand to her face, wondering why her brother hadn't shown up. Thinking his sister was crying, Hyun-soo approached to comfort her. However, Hyun Rabin furiously punched him. Hyun-soo felt his life flash before his eyes. His scream echoed throughout the neighborhood. Hyun Rabin furiously argued with him. Do you have any idea what I went through? If you were alive, you should have let me know. I quit school to look for you. I worked day and night to pay off the family debts and put food on the table. Still on the ground, Hyun-soo claimed he didn't know they had debts. Hyun Rabin was furious to the core because her brother hadn't cared about her. Hyun-soo tried to say that there was a reason he hadn't come back. However, Hyun Rabin didn't want to hear his excuses. Quickly, Hyun-soo raised his phone, showing a notification. He had transferred 10 billion won to his sister. Showing the amount, he asked if that would solve the debt problems. Hyun Rabin put her brother back on the couch. She sat down next to him, and her attitude changed completely. In life, some things don't need to be said. My brother really went through a lot. Coming back safely is what matters. Worried, Rabin asked if at least the money was clean, without fees or other problems. Changing the subject, Rabin wanted to know everything about her brother. How he lived, what he hunted, who he was affiliated with. Smiling, Sue said that if he told her, he'd have to take the money back. Just that comment made Rabin lose all interest. Remembering that his sister had asked for something, Sue said he had left it in her room. Rabin was confused, wondering what it could be. It had been 5 years ago, so it was something she had already forgotten about. As Hyun-soo stood up, he asked his sister to consider the item a birthday present. I went through a lot of trouble to get this, so don't sell it. Seeing Hyun-soo heading toward the door, Rabin asked where he was going, only to hear that he was going to work. She was surprised and worried, asking if he would come back. She tried to run after her brother, but Hyun-soo said he would contact her later. With that, he closed the door, leaving his sister behind. Even though she felt that something was suspicious, Rabin couldn't figure out what it was. When she got to her own room, she found the item on her bed. There was a box there, emanating an extremely dark energy. She was afraid that something might happen if she opened it. She imagined that big problems would come. She supposed that it was an item. For other people, a notification window with the information would appear. However, for her, it was a pity. Without seeing the various warning notifications that popped up one after another, Rabin approached the item. Could my brother really give something dangerous to his precious sister? Rabin approached the item mainly because her brother had said that she herself had asked for it. Various qualification warnings to obtain the item, as well as errors, began to appear. Even the notifications themselves were malfunctioning. As soon as Rabin opened the box, a golden light appeared and the seal of what was inside was released. The light enveloped the girl, who received notifications for the first time. Communication is necessary. A special system window is being provided for Hyun Rabin. Rabin didn't understand what was in front of her. There was a notification with a request. You have accessed the forbidden constellation Arzar. Do you wish to acquire the forbidden constellation? Rabin couldn't believe she was able to see a stats window. Analyzing the notification, she looked at the sword inside the box. This must be the usurper sword Arzar, right? She gritted her teeth. Did that bastard trick me? When did I ever say I wanted something like this? I never asked for a sword. I can tell just by looking at it that this isn't a normal item. Getting back to the main topic, Rabin searched the internet about constellations. Awakened individuals who are linked to a constellation achieve much greater accomplishments and feats compared to ordinary awakened ones. A constellation is something that only an extremely small minority of awakened individuals can obtain. The identities of constellations are diverse, including spirits, gods, stars, and heroes. Rabin found a list of awakened individuals with constellations. However, she didn't even know the first person on the list, the world's #1 ranked hunter, the owner of Niaiva, the only sacred relic-grade item on the entire planet, Fides. He never took off his mask anywhere, so his identity was unknown. Because of this, rumors about who he was were constantly spreading. Rabin figured her brother must have left the item behind by mistake since she had never asked for it. As soon as she decided to close the box to return it to her brother, the notification changed. Did you choose to acquire the sword? She was confused. The sword's light shone even brighter, and new notifications informed her that she had acquired the item. The user's profile was updated and an awakened record was being created. The praying sword floated in the air in front of Rabin. Immediately, several alert notifications appeared before the girl, who was able to see them for the first time. Overloads and errors were continuously occurring in the system. The world seemed to go mad, and the books and papers scattered around the girl's room began to fly. Rabin tried to calm the sword. I understand. Calm down. Don't destroy the whole house. I still haven't finished paying the rent. While the notifications went wild, the calculation was completed. Rabin's first statistics window appeared. The girl's level could not be checked. Her class was Guardian of Deceit. Incredibly, she had 2.14 billion in all stats, although they were inactive. Being forced to participate in that world, she would acquire abilities by advancing along a forbidden path. From then on, the administrator system would be hostile toward her for that reason. Traumatized by everything that had happened, Rabin asked if she couldn't cancel it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the Statue of Liberty was bathed in sunlight. In one of the apartments in New York, someone welcomed Fides. To think that the #1 hunter would visit the country, we are deeply moved. The hosts informed, in a video made for the hunter, that the hotel offered the best possible service. After watching the video, he rested, feeling embarrassed. Sitting on the sofa and placing his artifact beside him, he sighed, wondering why he had to attend a meeting in another country. Taking off his mask, the young man revealed his face, complaining about the sweat. The naiva next to him commented, "That's why you always ask me why I wear a mask." Using the transcendental form of a woman with purple hair and a halo behind her head, Naiva asked if he wore the mask just to look cool. Naiva, the thoughtful staff. One of the 7 most powerful constellations, and the only sacred relic rank constellation in the world. That was the only memento the young man carried from Hyun Rabin, from his first life. If it weren't for that, Hyun Seo would have thrown the staff away a long time ago. The memory of his past life never left his mind. His sister's deceitful farewell. Even knowing that would be the end, he couldn't bring himself to say goodbye. He always wanted to stop her from leaving. His sister, Hyun Rabin. Naiva argued with the young bearer. Rabin seemed very upset. Seo knew why. It was probably because he had disappeared for 5 years without saying anything, leaving her worried. However, he never imagined it would take so long to obtain the Ahezer. Besides, he wanted to avoid altering the future as much as possible. Naiva agreed. It would be better to live under a different identity and get everything in order before approaching them. The constellation just wanted Rabin's anger toward her brother to subside. 5 years ago, when he went back in time, Hyunseo found himself in a temporary shelter. The item he had used to return to the past really could only be used once. As he walked through the shelter, he soon spotted his sister, still alive. Just as he was about to run toward her, a notification appeared in front of him. If he revealed his return, the system administrator would become his enemy. Because of this, he decided to go find Ahesar and silently begged that his sister could wait for him. He felt like the system was mocking him. At least Hyunseo could trust Naiva. He wondered if it was only because they shared their memories that everything seemed fine. At least now that he had returned, he could send messages to check on his sister. Hyunseo remembered something curious. Rabin had said that he would reach a negative rank if he started with Ahesar, but that just seemed like a joke. He had never seen anyone with a negative rank before. However, Rabin had actually become rank -1. She was staring at her stats window. She couldn't believe it. Is this really real? Suddenly Rabin heard a voice. Yes, this is real. Startled, she couldn't believe the sword was talking to her. The sword Ahesar was quite polite. First of all, thank you for saving me. I thought I would be sealed away forever. Ahesar was surprised to be grabbed so suddenly. Rabin was planning to put the sword away. I'm sorry, but I'd like to cancel the contract, so goodbye. The sword became desperate when it heard the girl. No, you can't cancel. Never seal me again. The seal has already been broken, so sealing me again will be difficult. However, the girl didn't want to keep the sword, which made the being try to convince her. I've already been registered as your constellation. You can't cancel your first constellation. Rabin looked for help on the internet and discovered that the first contract was the strongest. From the second one on, there would be restrictions. The first constellation needed to be made carefully. Only from the second one, which would be considered indirect assistance, could the bond be broken. The girl fell into deep sadness, which made the being irritated. Why do you hate me? It's strange for me to say this, but I am the strongest among all existing constellations. Robin, narrowing his eyes, said that he could see the stat windows and it didn't seem to be as the being claimed. However, Rabin started searching for more information in the system. Adesar was in fact his first constellation. Adesar was revered as the Lord of War, the most powerful being from the first world that was destroyed, Al-Raiden. He had been the leader of the 7 sacred relics, but was stripped of all status and sealed away for an act of treason. Rabin knew the name Al-Raiden. That name was often associated with legendary items. Upon discovering that the sword was the leader of the 7 sacred relics, she wondered if the sword could also be of sacred relic grade. However, she realized something and looked at the sword. Didn't the other constellations turn against you? The sword looked sad. It's because I committed a crime against the administrator system. In order to prevent the world from being destroyed, I tried to stop it and paid the price for it. Worried, the sword asked the girl to act quickly to prevent the imminent destruction and to stop the administrator system to save the world. Rabin, however, wasn't so thrilled with the sword, which, although powerful, was in exile. She decided to assume that the sword was telling the truth. If we can't stop the administrator, the world will end. Let's just say that becoming stronger is a good thing for now. But the moment my power is revealed, the system and all the constellations will become hostile toward me. And I still have to prevent the destruction? Facing penalties and dangers? Is that even possible? The sword had no answers to these questions. Sitting down on the ground, Rabin asked when the world would end. After thinking for a moment, Areza revealed that it would happen 30 years after the sign of destruction appeared. Remembering that the world had changed 5 years ago, Rabin asked if they still had 25 years left to prevent the tragedy. Confirming that the girl was right, the usurper sword figured they would have enough time. The girl then stood up and declared excitedly, "Then, I'll do my best for the next 20 years. The sword thought the girl was talking about fighting evil, but Rabin ran to the door. "I want to do everything I want before the world ends, so I won't have any regrets." Trembling with worry, Arezar tried to stop her. "Are you going to let that overwhelming power rot away?" With a smile, Rabin asked if it was the sword who was going to use it. Trying to convince the girl, Arezar asked if she didn't want to become the strongest person in the world. The girl revealed that, some time ago, she really wanted to awaken so she could find her family. However, her only family had already appeared, even if it was suddenly. Looking for another reason, Arezar asked if the girl didn't like money. The girl raised her phone and showed her bank account. "I really love money, but I suddenly received 20 billion today." The sword was left speechless. The girl in front of it was looking at her phone with greedy eyes. "With this, I'll be able to live and fulfill all the wishes of my life for the next 25 years. Thanking the sword for revealing when the end of the world would be, Rabin said goodbye. Wishing the sword good night, Rabin left it alone in the dark room. Arezar shouted in frustration. Even though she was a sword, she cried, wondering what she should do. On a sunny day, Rabin faced yet another ordinary and boring day at school. Behind her, a boy sighed. I wish something would happen in my life, that it would turn into a fantasy game, or that a portal would open and we'd enter a hunter story. Rabin looked at her classmate Taiseo, asking if he wasn't tired of reading the same thing every day. However, the boy could only think about how fun it would be to live in a story like those in the books. Rabin was faced with the question, didn't she feel the same way? Without a response, Rabin looked out the window at the peaceful sky. However, something appeared in the sky that was previously sunny. A portal. A large hole gathering energy for its dark end had appeared in the sky. Before the two students could react, red dragons, bone monsters, and all sorts of creatures began to emerge. Rabin stood up in fright when she saw the monsters. Afraid, she called out to her friend, "Hey, Kang Taiseo, can you see this too?" The young man was focused on something else's statistics window. The boy who dreamed of being in a game-based world had his wish come true. That night, when she got home, Rabin received a phone call. On the other end of the line, the officer informed her about her parents' disappearance. With her parents missing, Rabin worked hard to become a hunter. However, no matter how much she screamed, no statistics or quest windows appeared before her. Day and night, she wondered why it wasn't working. After giving up on everything, what Rabin had to face when she came to her senses were the family debts, the loneliness of being left alone, the pressure to survive, and the doubt of whether she could make it through even one more day. Reality was cold. Waking up on her couch after recalling the past, Rabin seemed to have made a decision. The room was dark. Only the television was on. Rabin got up, stepping on Arezar before she could say anything. Rabin's gaze was cruel. "You, without permission, want to casually investigate my personal life?" Sweating nervously despite being a sword, Arezar tried to make excuses. "I wasn't spying. It's normal for a first constellation to share their memories." The sword tried to calm Rabin down, attempting to warn her what would happen to the floor if she kept pressing on it. As Arezar had warned, the wooden floor of the house broke. The sword tried to shift the blame, but Rabin was too furious. "I awakened because of you. That's why I can't control my strength." Even though she needed to fix the floor, Haben picked up her phone, as she had other things to take care of first. Meanwhile, at a table covered in documents, Hyun-soo was using the computer. He sighed, tired, deciding to stop working since it was late. Naeva suggested that he get some rest. As the head of a hunters association, she saw her contractor busy even at home. Curious, Naeva asked if he was enjoying his double life. She still couldn't understand how a lazy human, who only watched television on the couch while resting, could have such a troublesome job organizing hunters internationally, as well as the associations in each country. The young man reminded Naeva that, as soon as his sister grew up, he could take a step back. He wasn't busy just because he wanted to be. Naeva couldn't believe it, since he was one of the key figures in the Spez Association and even the boss now. She stared deep into his eyes, questioning, "Is it really necessary to work this much?" While the two were talking, Hyun-soo's phone received a message. The young and strange little sister was arguing with Hyun-soo by sending a barrage of messages. Hey, you said you were going to text me. What is this sword you left behind? It keeps talking about the end of the world. It's crazy about wanting to save the world. I don't want a gift like this. Drag your heels over here and take this back. Reading the messages, both Hyunsoo and Niaiva were left speechless. By properly analyzing the messages, the hunter understood that his sister had safely managed to break Arizar's seal. However, he didn't understand what the problem was, since last time his sister had gotten along so well with the sword. Curious, Niaiva asked what was going on. Not knowing what else to do, Hyunsoo said he would return home to find out. Downcast, he knew he would get a scolding when he got back. Arizar, in her spiritual form, resembled a small ball of fire. She explained to the girl that the reason, according to her own memories, for being an enemy of the system was that it must have been a mistake from the start, since she had never been able to see a stats window. Arizar saw the girl's power as abnormal. Even though it was powerful, it should have been impossible to possess so much power. You must be experiencing an overload because of the error. Arizar was shocked to see that the girl wasn't paying attention, and told her to pay attention when someone was speaking. Haben was talking to his manager, asking him not to give him any more shifts. Never again. After contacting everyone and quitting his jobs, Haben was able to stretch enthusiastically. I'm so happy. Now I need to live even happier until the end of the world comes. The sword tried to get Haben's attention, but the girl didn't want to listen. Grabbing her phone, she hurried to sign up for a streaming service, something she had never been able to do before since she never had any money left over. After signing up for her first television service, she looked for a manhwa service. Not understanding anything the girl was talking about, Arizar tried once again to remind her that the world was in danger, but to no avail. The girl pushed the little ball of fire away, telling it to listen carefully. I've already done the math. After paying the bills with the money I received, I'll have a generous amount left for daily expenses, leisure, and even to spend on luxuries for 25 years. Could I really spend that much money so freely, even if I got married? I couldn't even watch television. Now, all those years I spent pretending to understand what people were saying about popular dramas will be well compensated. Arizar's expression turned somber when she saw the girl only wanted to watch television. She didn't think it was the right time for that. While Hyun Rabin was trying to impose her will on Arizar, she heard her brother announce his return. Upon hearing that someone named Hyunsoo had arrived, Arizar changed her mind. Arizar remembered that the girl had said that this person was the one who had turned her in. Arizar almost cried, hoping that the expert Hyunsoo would rescue her like a savior. However, as soon as Hyunsoo entered the room, Habin threw him against the wall. Even though he was caught off guard, the young man felt an immense sense of calm. Holding the sword in his hand, Habin ordered him to explain what that gift was. Hyunsoo sighed, revealing that he wanted to tell but couldn't. Pressed against the wall, Hyunsoo tried to break free, afraid of his sister. Habin, what kind of bad habit is this that you've developed against your brother? His simple comment made Haben furious, to the point where he had to apologize and politely ask if they could talk. Haben didn't let him go and asked if the sword was something from the Inconfinata or from the organization he belonged to. Hyunsoo revealed that the sword had nothing to do with his work, reminding his sister. I told you this was something you asked for, didn't I? It was a package with your name on it that arrived a long time ago and said it was to be delivered to your house. I forgot about it and only just remembered, so I brought it. Frowning, Haben asked how her brother had sent a delivery package if he had been missing. Seo gritted his teeth, as he couldn't think of any other excuses. He simply pretended not to understand. Oh, that's true. How was the package sent by me? Annoyed, Haben asked where and when he had sent the package, but he replied that he simply didn't know. She asked what he meant by having obtained the sword with great difficulty, but he made up the excuse that he had trouble showing it. Faced with so many excuses from her brother, Haben tried to figure out if he was lying. Seo was confident in his acting, since he had the experience of 2 lifetimes. What's the problem? Is there something wrong with the sword? Believing that her brother really didn't know anything, Haben wondered how much she could tell him about what had happened with Arizar. However, the sword spoke for her. The world is going to end. Help me, Hyunsoo. Haben was shocked to hear the sword speaking to her brother. How can you shout that for the whole neighborhood to hear? Arizar had a plan. All of humanity needs to know about this. Annoyed, Haben threatened the sword. Ignorance is bliss. You'd better watch what you say or I'll seal you away somewhere no one will ever find you. Even with the sword silent, Haben kept scolding it. Did you even consider that I could get hurt if things went wrong? We don't even know who is friend or foe anymore. Annoyed, the girl told the sword to pay attention, because being strong wasn't everything. Maybe that's the reason you failed in your previous world. After Haben calmed down and told the story to her brother, Hyunsoo pretended not to know anything. Having ordered a pizza to calm his sister down, Seo stayed in character by claiming that the end of the world was crazy. Pretending to be curious, he asked when the world would end, and Haben revealed that the sword had said it would be in 25 years. Hyunsoo pretended to be surprised. Oh, so it's not going to end anytime soon. Haben shared the same carefree attitude, while Arizar grew irritated. That kind of nonchalant attitude is the real problem with humans. That's why you don't protect the environment and just pass the problems on to your descendants. Eating her chocolate and pineapple pizza, Haben nodded in agreement with Arazar. Curious, Seo asked if his sister was just going to rest. Haben revealed her plans, to play games, to do whatever she wanted. Seo figured his sister was planning to do a lot, and soon she started listing them. I'm already behind on my dramas, I need to catch up. I also want to visit some restaurants, and then there are my hobbies. Understanding his sister's intentions, Seo stood up. Seeing that he couldn't help with anything, he planned to leave. But in a hurry, Haben stopped him. Afraid, Hyun-seo sat back down. You don't have to call me big brother if it makes you uncomfortable. Do you need anything? Scratching the back of her neck for acting so strangely, Haben admitted she felt a little bad for calling him so suddenly. Haben asked him to at least keep her awakening a secret, as she wanted to live a peaceful life. She sincerely asked him to help her with this. Hyun-seo was left speechless by his sister's request and by remembering what she had gone through while he was away. All right, it's not like I would go around spreading things about you or anything like that. After Hyun-seo left his sister's house, Nieva appeared to him. Seriously? You're going to back down? With his head down, Hyun-seo thought about a few things. Before entering his sister's house, he already had it in mind that Haben would fight against the system once again. Thinking back on how he spent 5 years fighting to obtain Arazar, on all the hardships he faced to reach the top rank, he had hoped that his sister would at least help him a little. Just as he was about to open the door, he heard his sister talk about her dreams, about how even subscribing to a streaming service was expensive for her. Hearing how she had lost so many years and wanted to get them back, Hyun-seo backed down. Little by little, he began to understand how his sister had lived, unable to enjoy what others enjoyed, without a moment to rest. Thinking about his past life, Seo imagined that by now his sister should have reached global rank 1, but the reason she hadn't managed it this time was because he ended up with Nieva, which was originally supposed to be hers. The butterfly effect caused both of their lives to change drastically. However, this was something that the Hyun Habin from the past had asked him to do herself. Seo couldn't be blamed. Nieva couldn't understand how the boy could be so inconsistent. Either apologize or don't be embarrassed. Seo decided to blame his former sister for making the request. He didn't just blame his sister but also her damn informants. Whenever he looked for information about her just a little, so as not to draw attention, everyone said she was living well. Frustrated, Hyun-seo sighed, never having imagined that his sister led such a hard life. Curious, Nieva asked if he would return empty-handed. Seo intended to honor his sister's wishes. However, Nieva reminded him that without someone as powerful as Rabin, the chances of saving the world were slim. But Seo cared more about his sister than about the destruction of the world. As Hyun-seo's constellation, Nieva warned him that he was talking nonsense, but he responded lightheartedly. It's not like the chance of saving the world is 0 without her, right? Nieva, however, was left speechless, as she couldn't lie. She was so excellent in judgment that her nickname was the weighing staff. Her calculations were extremely precise. However, faced with a young woman who had finally managed to catch a break, Hyun-seo refused to throw her into the middle of a battlefield. Nieva watched her contractor with a curious look. Having read his thoughts, she ended up surprised. Seo also knew there were no guarantees they would succeed even with his sister. Instead of clinging to false hopes, he wanted to accept fate and let her find happiness. Following the young man, Nieva warned, "We might succeed this time. The Hyun Rabin of this round possesses an extremely strong power." However, Seo disagreed, recalling that both the planet Al Raiden had failed and that Earth had also failed once before. He didn't want to force his sister to do something, even if she was extremely strong. Confused, Nieva asked if the 5 years Seo had suffered had been in vain. However, with a smile, he contradicted her. "I didn't suffer. Thanks to Hyun Rabin, who brought you to me, I reached the top spot, and now I'm just letting life take me wherever it goes." Seo reminded the sacred artifact that it wasn't him who had suffered. Even so, Nieva warned him, "You can't cover the sun with a sieve. If that girl has such potential, sooner or later the world will find out." Unexpectedly, a letter had already been sent by the government to Hyun Rabin's house. Curious, Razar asked what it was, and the girl revealed that they were asking her to retake the awakened test. She crumpled the letter furiously. Her dark expression could destroy whoever betrayed her with just a look. Frustrated, the girl revealed what would happen if she didn't go to the exam. Not only would she receive a fine, but she would go straight to prison. Razar was shocked to learn that they would be treated as criminals if they didn't reveal their powers. He became extremely excited. This country does its job very well. They don't let those who hide their powers get away. Rabin was furious to see Razar go against her. Crossing her imaginary arms, Razar told her to obey the law. Slamming the table furiously, Rabin insisted that she had always been a good citizen. But Razar shouted nervously, "Don't lie!" Rabin sighed, knowing how desperate the government was to control as many awakened as possible. The girl nearly tore her own hair out, asking if she couldn't have a little freedom just because she had awakened. Rizar rejoiced at seeing the girl so distressed. Thinking for a moment, Rabin remembered that if she used a debuff potion, she could reduce her stats by at least 300 points. However, as soon as she opened her stats window, she remembered that her points exceeded 2 billion. Downcast, she asked if there was any way to escape and not be discovered. Rizar rolled his eyes at how determined she was to hide. Looking through the now crumpled paper, she read a section about actions taken against Awakened for security reasons. She immediately opened the Hunter's Wikipedia, searching for information on the subject. She found out that the Awakened Security Management Act had been created after the Portal Crisis. The military power possessed by the Awakened surpassed that of any nation. Because of this, after the Portal Crisis, Awakened individuals often committed terrible acts against forces without equivalent powers, leading to a period when the world became a lawless zone. Rabin remembered very well that this had happened 5 years ago. Continuing to read the article, she discovered that the lawless era came to an end when the current world number 1, Fides, appeared. Fides, who possessed overwhelming abilities, sought out and purged awakened criminals and bandits. He publicly supported the social systems of democratic nations, protecting the human rights of people who were not awakened. Rabin discovered that he also created the awakened examination system to prevent relentless attacks from malicious awakened individuals. After finishing the reading, Rabin stated grimly, "Rezar, the time has come to use the power you so desired." Rezar was excited that they were finally beginning to take action to prevent destruction. However, he was frightened by the look that was directed at him. With a grim look, Rabin stated what they were going to do. "This guy named Fides, we need to destroy him." Elsewhere in the city, unaware of his sister's thoughts, Hyunseo put on his mask. "All right, this time I'll play the role of the older brother. My little sister wants to play, so I'll let her play." Whatever. A video of a conference had been published. In the video, the speaker was none other than Fides. Even if the world has changed, human values must be protected. Here is the result of democracy, safeguarded by the blood of countless philosophers, sociologists, and activists over a long period of time. If there is any outlaw who tries to overturn this history with the law of the jungle, I will not forgive them. Robin felt an inexplicable sense of rejection in Fides' speech. Since the December speech, Fides had come to be revered as a hero of all humanity. Without him, it would have been difficult for Korea to regain its status as a nation. The Hunters Association also would not have been able to reorganize its rules in such a systematic and transparent way. In short, Fides was a hero to all of humanity. Rabin felt that the wiki article she was reading was full of fan worship. At the very least, she thought he was a good person. Rabin sat down on the floor, remembering that Fides was called the hero of humanity. Despite that, she saw him as an enemy. Because of him, Korea had been able to create a law that allowed awakened people to be confined without even considering what they thought. Rabin threw herself onto the floor, throwing a tantrum like a spoiled, whiny child, wanting to live her life in peace. Small tears appeared in the corners of Rabin's eyes, who just wanted a little break to breathe, the freedom to hide her powers. She cried because she couldn't play video games or watch dramas. In the end, Rabin found it quite suspicious that this Fides worked so hard as an apostle of justice. She immediately got up, wondering if there was something going on behind the scenes, like in dramas, where the straight-laced young man is actually corrupt. The one praying was unsure about Rabin's thoughts, but she quickly explained that it was just common sense. There was always some family plot or something like that involving people like him. He might act like an apostle of justice in front of everyone, but at home maybe he steals his sister's snacks or something like that. After searching for so long, Rabin ended up frustrated for not discovering anything about Fides' real identity. In any case, she wouldn't be able to change the law even if she found him. Confused, the one praying asked if Rabin couldn't threaten this Fides just like she had done with him. Acting humbly, Rabin reminded him that there was something called human rights. In response to the girl's words, the one praying asked why she had treated him badly, and immediately got his answer, "You're not a person." Putting Fides aside, Rabin began to think about how she could hide her powers. That's when she received a message from her brother. "Among my acquaintances, there's someone who hides their power." Rabin began to read the list of tips. Change the class name, make it private, or find another way. Energy leakage is easier to hide the better your control is. Rabin didn't believe that this was about an acquaintance of her brother. It was far too specific to be someone else's story. At his house, Hyunseo suddenly felt his ear itch, and next to him, Niaiva ordered, "Go wash that dirty ear." Annoyed, he insisted that he washed it every day, asking if Niaiva didn't wash hers. In her apartment, Rabin opened her statistics window. The young woman's class was called Guardian of Deceit. The class description was practically an insult. "You, who deceive the entire system and walk a forbidden path, are a hypocrite like no other this world has ever seen." Looking at the class name and its description, Rabin thought about the skill that allowed her to disguise her class name. She considered her brother's idea for a moment and decided to change her class name first. Reaching out her hand, Rabin used the Deceiver's Wish skill. Immediately, a strong energy filled her status window. Soon, the class that was previously called Deception Guardian was changed to Magic Swordsman. That was a common class. Then, Rabin told Rezar that it would be more convenient this way. Next, she asked the sword spirit how he would like to appear. The girl gave a few options. A baseball bat? An axe? It's really okay, even if you choose something weird. Rezar's eyes nearly popped out of his body, reminding the girl that if a magic swordsman carried something like that, it would be even stranger. Taking out her phone, Rabin showed some pictures, telling Rezar to pick one. On the girl's phone, there were several different swords. Seeing that he would be turned into a sword, Rezar was furious for having been teased earlier, making Rabin burst out laughing. Picking up the usurper sword, she asked if they could start. Raising the luxurious sword and using her skill, she transformed the item into an ordinary sword. Rabin also reminded Rezar not to speak when they were outside, only when she alone could hear him. Sad for having received such an insignificant appearance, Rezar lowered his head and obeyed. Looking at her stats, Rabin wondered what she should do with them. With the wish ability, she could change them, but she was still afraid of being discovered. Annoyed, Rezar just wanted to fight against the administrator system. The girl tried to cheer up the sacred sword. We won't give up. They say that if you know your enemy and know yourself, you will win 100 battles. However, Rezar was desperate to fight the system, to the point of lashing out at Rabin. Just reveal your powers. Don't be so dramatic. Wanting to have the worst possible rank to live a peaceful life, Rabin cast Rezar's spirit far away. Thus, the protagonist Hyun Rabin, aiming to uncover the principles behind the Awakened tests, immersed herself in all kinds of research and official patents. As a result, Hyun Rabin was able to discover something extremely important. By the end of the afternoon, the girl found out that magic-sensitive stones would be used for simple tests in public institutions. Browsing the internet, Rabin discovered that, although the simple method was the standard, it was possible to request a more detailed method. She couldn't understand why anyone would do that. With extremely tired eyes and an almost decrepit appearance, she wished to go with the simple method and live a simple life no matter what. Seeing how exhausted the girl was, Rezar recommended that she go to sleep first. Banging her head on the table, she wished she could find a way to hide her stats. Looking at Rezar, the girl asked if the sword knew anything. Immediately, Rezar turned away, claiming not to know anything. However, the girl's gaze was fixed on the sword spirit's neck, which began to sweat. Rabin could tell that Rezar was hiding something. I've already figured out that lying isn't one of your strong suits. With Rezar constantly denying it, Rabin smiled, reminding him that he couldn't play dumb since she could see his stats window as he was her constellation. Rabin found out that Rezar possessed the concealment art skill, a technique that allowed one to hide their presence and aura to avoid revealing themselves. A basic skill for a martial artist. Rabin couldn't believe that Rezar had kept this hidden from her. Making up her mind, she stood up and confidently declared, I will definitely master this skill before the test. In contrast to Rabin's excitement, Rezar showed a feeling that was completely the opposite of hers. A few days later, the day of the test arrived and Hyun Rabin went to a decrepit public health center with cracked and dirty walls. An ordinary and quiet place. Inside, the place was quite organized, in stark contrast to its exterior appearance. Confused, Hyun Rabin looked at Rezar, who kept muttering, This is impossible. No way. Rezar was crying as she shouted, I'm telling you, this is a skill that's impossible to master so quickly. What kind of human are you? Ignoring Rezar's tantrum, Hyun Rabin cheerfully followed a man who called her over to the testing machine. The machine looked like a multi-parameter monitor. It measured heart rate, blood pressure, among many other things. However, attached to it was a small glass globe with a stone inside. As she observed the machine, Rabin wondered how much she should hide. Beside her, Rezar was crying continuously. Rabin knew that erasing her presence would be good, but if she did it carelessly, from the machine's perspective, she might not be recognized as a person. It would be a problem if the machine judged her as an inanimate object because of excessive concealment. Wanting to reveal just enough of her presence to seem like an ordinary person, Rabin placed her hand on the globe with the stone. As soon as she touched the glass sphere, Rabin saw energy being released from the stone. Unexpectedly, the magic stone began to shine intensely, to the point that its light filled the entire office. The brightness that appeared was so strong that Rabin had to put her hand in front of her face to shield her eyes. Before they could do anything, the measuring machine simply exploded. People outside the office were startled when they heard the explosion and felt the building shake. Rabin closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, she saw that in front of her there was only smoke and twisted pieces of metal. Rezar was amazed. Wow, that's an incredible amount of power. Rabin couldn't understand why the machine was so weak. She just wanted to rest at home, but she had greatly overestimated the scanner. The girl put her hands on her head, facing her great mistake. Quickly, an employee ran into the room asking what had happened. He rushed over to see the machine, not understanding what was going on. Behind him, Haben pretended to be clueless, while sweating and cursing internally. While the girl ground her teeth, the prayer celebrated, because her powers would be revealed. Seeing the destruction that had occurred, the young nurse asked if she was okay. However, the girl replied differently, "It's broken." With the evaluator growing confused, Haben used her acting skills to argue with him. "How can you bring me something defective to test my powers? What are you doing with my taxes? And what if I had gotten hurt?" The prayer frowned, because even if the machine exploded 1,000,000 times, she wouldn't get hurt. In the end, the officer believed Haben and arranged for a new inspection at a different laboratory. At the next inspection, Haben made a decision to hide her powers to the point of pretending she wasn't even alive. Before she realized it, confetti cannons were set off. Several people surrounded the girl, congratulating her for achieving an A rank. Haben fell to her knees on the floor, screaming desperately. "No way," she cried, insisting there must have been a mistake, a malfunction in the machine. The people around her were confused, thinking they had scared her with the confetti. Some tried to approach her, attempting to cheer her up for having received such an amazing ranking. They couldn't believe the girl was actually upset, as if she had been expecting an S rank. What Haben didn't know was that one day she would regret having screamed like that in front of everyone. On that day of the test, although Haben was desperate, the examiner was intoxicated with happiness. On the way home, Haben cried until her eyes were swollen. Lying in her bed, she said goodbye to her easy life. Beside her, the examiner couldn't understand what the problem was. Getting up, Haben explained that they had avoided the worst-case scenario. There could only be 5 people in the highest rank in the world. The triple S rank, 50 in the double S rank, and about 1,000 in the S rank. If Haben had fallen into the double S rank, for example, when someone looked up the ranking list, they would see everyone drop down 1 position to make room for her. Haben explained the reason why she was, at least, relieved. Since from rank A downwards the number of awakened is huge, the ranks don't really make sense. So we can at least guarantee the barrier of anonymity. Picking up a piece of paper with some information, Haben commented that, even so, there was no real freedom, especially for someone in rank A. Everyone who was at least in rank B had to go to an academy. Otherwise, they would be arrested. Pouting on her bed, Haben said that was why she wished she had stayed in rank C, so she wouldn't have to go to the academy. She wanted to stay at home, comfortably, doing her training online in a cozy room. However, for those in rank B or above, the training was in person, with at least a month under supervision. With a smile that hid her anger, Haben asked if, to avoid confinement, she really had to go to the academy while carefully hiding her strength. Upon learning from Haben what the academy was, the Razar became excited. However, Haben just wanted to give up. Lying in bed, Haben just wanted to be like the Korean YouTubers, posting videos while talking about how great the country was, eating until she was stuffed and doing things like that. Suddenly, Haben heard her phone ring. She received a message from someone named Kim Jian, the class president, asking if they should start the meeting. Picking up her phone, Haben couldn't believe it was already time. Even though she had left school in her first year, just like many others after the portal incident, her old class group was still active, even after 5 years. She realized that this was all because of one person. In the group chat, everyone was excited to find out that, possibly, a guy named Kang Tae-seo might join the meeting. Curious, Rizar asked what was so amazing about this Kang Tae-seo that made him so popular. Haben revealed that Kang Tae-seo was number 1 in the domestic hunters ranking, the first and only triple S rank hunter in Korea, the best result from Yunseo High School first year class 7. In addition, he held both the 2nd position in the world ranking and the 1st position nationally, and was Korea's representative hunter. Haben explained that basically, Kang Tae-seo was a celebrity among celebrities. Frowning, Haben felt that times had really changed. Back in school, Kang Tae-seo was just a kid who sat in the back of the class, reading novels and manga with her. And now, he had changed quite a bit since the last time they saw each other. Haben felt something strange, as if she were seeing a friend she had lost touch with. With so many messages coming in, Haben felt her phone heating up. The group, in fact, only existed because of the possibility of meeting Kang Tae-seo. Frowning, Haben was indignant. Those bastards always ignored Kang Tae-seo because he was quiet and weird at school, and now they were always asking about him. While she was struggling 5 years ago, no one even asked about her. Reza remembered that people only cared about those who were successful. That's why she should reveal her power. Since she knew the world was going to end, Haben thought she should at least see her old classmates one last time. She sent a message to the group. "This time I'll go." After the message was sent, an awkward silence filled the group. Next to the girl, and seeing no other messages, Reza commented, "They really don't respect you." Going back to bed, Haben hid under the covers, pretending not to care. When night fell, 2 hunters were talking in the street. One of them, wearing a jacket, asked his companion, "Why are you staring at your phone like that?" Without getting an answer, the hunter watched his friend walk away. Left alone, he complained, "That idiot really has no social skills. Well, at least we're done." Walking through the city, the hunter glanced at his phone once more. On it was a message notification from Hyun-Haben in the group. "This time I'll go." Remembering his school friend, Kang Tae-seo felt an unexpected wave of nostalgia. The next day, carrying a suitcase, Haben sighed, upset because she didn't want to go to the gym. She was standing in front of the Hunters Association. She much preferred to pay a fee than to attend the classes. Since there was no clause about being late, she planned to arrive as late as possible. Talking to Rezer, she complained, "I don't want to be a hunter, so why force me to train? This is an unnecessary waste of tax money. We shouldn't be using national funds like this." While she was complaining, Haben didn't notice that someone was approaching her. A hooded man appeared behind the girl, asking in her ear, "Are you the new apprentice who arrived this time?" Wondering who was talking to her, Haben turned around, facing the young man with golden eyes and hair. Finding the man's informal tone strange, Haben asked who he was. The young man took out a card, revealing himself to be one of the mentors at the training center, and asked her not to be so defensive. Asking if her suitcase was heavy, the mentor received a no in response. Haben turned her back to him, intending to go up the stairs to the academy on her own. The girl simply picked up the suitcase as if it weighed nothing and slung it over her shoulder. Skipping several steps, she climbed up quickly. Left behind, the mentor smiled, wondering who that eccentric girl was. When she reached the reception desk, Haben was scolded by the association staff member. "Hyun-Habin, you are extremely late. Is it already lunchtime? Then you should get your lunch and get ready to join the afternoon schedule." Despite her surprise, Haben thought she had arrived at a great time lunchtime. With her tray in hand, Haben looked for a place to sit. Sitting at one of the tables, she sighed, hoping no one would pay attention to her, since she just wanted to eat in peace. However, as soon as Haben sat down, that man who had said he was a mentor sat down in front of her with a smile on his face. An extremely tired expression appeared on Haben's face. She felt that whenever she expected something, the opposite always happened. To get rid of the mentor, Haben told him that someone was already sitting where he had taken a seat. Surprised, the mentor asked if she had made a friend, and wanted to know who it was. Making up a name on the spot, Haben claimed that Kim Jalja was sitting there. However, the mentor kept smiling and, to Haben's misfortune, decided to sit down anyway. Haben tried to calm herself down. The man might have seemed cunning, but the whole story about him being a mentor seemed legitimate, especially since Haben had already seen some messages since she arrived. A large notification appeared above the mentor, visible only to Haben. "The nearest light constellation is watching you with interest." Haben knew that the nearest light constellation was possessed by only 2 people in all of Korea. The pair was the only joint contractor in the entire world, causing a huge commotion. Apprehensive, Haben knew that the system wouldn't lie to her. She had already heard about the pair's passive ability, which made their hair color change. However, it was hard to tell what the mentor's hair color was, since he wore a hood. At that moment, someone passing behind the mentor accidentally bumped into his chair. The hood fell off, drawing everyone's attention in the cafeteria. Everyone was shocked to see the blonde man. Why is Chae Ji-sok here? Chae Ji-sok was currently among the top 3 in the country, a double S-rank ranker, and the vice leader of the Great Solaris Guild. His trademark was the sun's radiance ability, which gave his hair a natural golden shine. Ignoring the stares around the table, and even the cell phones taking pictures of him, Ji-seok focused on the protagonist who was eating. "You're Hyun-Haben, right? Would you like to join our guild?" Hyun-Haben promptly refused, ignoring the hunter. However, Chae Ji-sok did not give up. "If you're curious about the terms, I can reveal them to you in advance. If you join us, the base pay will be 1 billion won. Haben cut him off immediately. "That's not enough." Shocked, Ji-seok raised the offer. "How about 10 billion? The amount didn't even make Haben stop eating to answer, "I already have that." The vice guild leader was left perplexed at not receiving an affirmative answer. Soon, conversations in the cafeteria began to spread. "Who is that talking to Chae Ji-sok? He offered her a spot in the guild and apparently she turned it down. Who is she to reject an invitation from Solaris? She said she already has 10 billion. Is she really that rich? A Chable?" Hearing the murmurs, Haben kept chewing her lunch, annoyed. As soon as she finished eating, though she was still chewing, she stood up furiously, shouting at Chae Ji-sok. "I already told you I'm not going." "I'm definitely not going." Immediately, Hyun-Haben turned to leave. Her goal was to live comfortably without working. Haben swore that no matter how much they offered her, she would never join a guild. After lunch, the new students headed to the auditorium to continue with the afternoon schedule. One of the teachers, holding a document, announced that each of the newcomers would be assigned a mentor during the training period. "Please cooperate with the mentors who will be guiding you through the process." The teacher asked each person to introduce themselves so they could then proceed with the afternoon session. Haben felt as if she had fallen into an abyss. Standing in front of her was the blonde mentor. "Nice to meet you, Hyun-Haben." She couldn't understand why, out of all people, that guy had been assigned as her mentor. Seeing the girl remain silent, Jisuk smiled, trying to break the ice. The girl was blunt when she saw him. Even so, I'm not going to join your guild. Jisuk asked her to reconsider, but she was firm. That's not going to happen. Jisuk felt that Hyun Habin was being extremely resolute. The next day, he had to knock repeatedly on the girl's door to wake her up. Hyun Habin, you need to attend the morning session. You're going to be late. Annoyed, the girl tried to insist that she was taking a break for self-study. Cheerfully, Jiseok tried to entice her. This isn't university, you know. If you keep this up, you'll have to do everything all over again. Under the covers, Habin was extremely annoyed. Provoking Chae-Jisok had proven to be the wrong move. Even so, Jisok decided to persist. When she was on her break, he approached and discovered that she was watching a drama. Sitting on a bench in the square, Habin decided to ignore him. But Jiseok was persistent, recommending another drama for her to watch as well. Time passed and Habin returned to her room, grabbing her computer. Watching the drama recommended by her mentor, she scoffed, "Does he really think this is fun? My taste is very picky, you know." The night went by quickly, and soon the next day arrived. Without having taken her eyes off the computer screen, Habin's eyes sparkled despite her tiredness. This really is fun. Once again, Jiseok knocked on her door, trying to call her. Surprisingly, he was very good at recommending genuinely entertaining shows. And not only that, Chae-Jisok bought a gigantic platter of sushi, offering it to Rabin as he asked if she was tired of cafeteria food. Rabin's eyes lit up at the sight of the salmon sushi platter. She swallowed hard when she saw that. Besides the sushi, her mentor had also bought spicy chicken and jeju pork. All those foods were on the list of the most desired in the world, leaving poor Rabin utterly stunned. As she ate those delicacies, Rabin wondered why Jisok was doing all this. Why was the vice leader of the Solaris Guild so actively trying to recruit her? In Korea, the top guild was Kaligo, led by the #1 ranker, Kang Tae-sok. The country's #2 and 3 rankers formed the Solaris Guild, and one of them was none other than Chae-Jisok. Rabin couldn't understand why he was so desperate to recruit an A-rank awakened, considering he was the vice leader of one of the top guilds in the country. She felt that something was off, that this guy definitely knew something. Reading her contractor's thoughts, Rezer got excited. "Your power is being revealed." Annoyed by the comment, Rabin tossed her sword aside when they got back home. Exhausted, she complained, "I just want to finish this training and leave as soon as possible." Trying to get some rest, Rabin wished that nothing would happen. However, Rezer was hoping for the opposite. The next day, the students would take part in a practical class at the training center to clear a mirrored dungeon. The teacher explained that upon entering, the dungeon would analyze the participants' traits and summon monsters compatible with their levels. No one needed to be tense, because for safety, they would be accompanied by a mentor. Rabin was shocked. That class was insane. Someone needed to stop it, because something huge would happen if she took part. The girl sighed, "I feel like I shouldn't take this class." Appearing beside her, mentor Jiseok revealed that she couldn't skip it, since it was a required subject. He smiled enthusiastically. "How could you, a first year, think about skipping classes?" Frustrated, Rabin wanted to skip class precisely to keep the annoying mentor safe. She knew it would be dangerous, since each of her stats was in the 2 billion range. Her grade was unknown, although her rank was negative. With all that combined, she wondered what kind of monster would appear. Soon it was time for the 7th group to enter the dungeon. The mentor, Chae-Jisok, with the student Hyun Rabin. Seeing the two walking side by side, many students were extremely envious. Before entering the dungeon, Rabin stopped and warned, "Hey, I'm telling you this for your own good. You'd better run away." With a frightening look, the girl gave the mentor one last warning. After the portal incident, which happened 5 years ago, 2 types of dungeons began to appear. The first was a gigantic dungeon, known as the Final Screen. In it, it was possible to conquer a special dungeon on each floor, but the difficulty was so high that only high-ranked awakened could advance. The second type was generated randomly and would suddenly appear in populated areas. The training dungeon was precisely this type of randomly generated portal, known as a mirrored dungeon. As soon as Hyun Rabin entered her information into the machine, she and the instructor proceeded to the portal area. Unlike other dungeons, this one did not have a set rank, as it summoned monsters according to the participant's level. Even after conquering the dungeon within that chaotic portal, it would not disappear, allowing participants to leave freely. With these unique features, the mirrored dungeon was perfect for training novices like Rabin. As soon as Rabin and the instructor Choi Jae-sok crossed the portal, they found themselves in a vast desert surrounded by rocky mountains. While the dungeon was analyzing the participants' ranks, Choi Jae-sok looked around and then smiled at Rabin. "Don't be afraid. Even if it looks scary, only monsters you can defeat will appear." At that moment, several error notifications began to appear. The dungeon's limit had been exceeded, and the final rank level analyzed turned into a long string of S letters. Faced with these notifications, even Jae-suk was confused. Finally, after several messages, the category assessment was completed. Immediately, a shadowy mist appeared. Sharp eyes stared at the humans in front of them. A gigantic paw with sharp claws smashed into the ground, and with a terrifying howl, one of the countless nameless creatures summoned en masse shook the skies. Quickly, the instructor stepped in front of Rabin. "Get back! I can't see their health bar." The giant monster opened its beak, beginning to gather a large sphere of dark energy. Madly, it fired the sphere like a jet of energy, piercing a mountain from one side to the other. Faced with such a powerful attack, the instructor stated that they needed to leave the dungeon immediately. However, the notification in front of their eyes thwarted their plans. "You cannot leave until you complete the dungeon." He couldn't believe it. Phenomena like this only happened in special double S-rank portals. Jae-sok gritted his teeth and, snapping his fingers, produced a flash of light. 2 long daggers appeared in his hand as he got ready to fight. Monsters of all kinds appeared on the horizon, advancing toward the teacher and student duo. Choi Jae-sok took the initiative, charging at one of the monsters and attacking it with his twin daggers, unleashing blows of light. However, shock was written all over his face when he realized his attacks had no effect. He couldn't understand what was happening. Meanwhile, Rabin was looking at her notification window. This is an act of deceiving the judgment of the Void Contagion system. Designate one of the opponent's stats to ignore, usable once per day. Rabin figured that, since there were no health bars, if she ignored the monster's health stats with the Void Contagion, she could defeat them easily. However, she wondered what she should do, since there was a witness with her. Arizar appeared beside Rabin, trying to convince her to attack the monster so the professor wouldn't be eaten. However, Rabin was more focused on how strange and inefficient Choi Jae-sok's movements were. Reading her thoughts, Arizar explained that Jae-sok was moving that way because he was prioritizing her protection. This made Rabin come to a decision and use the Void Contagion. Select the enemy's life. Immediately, a notification appeared stating that the opponent's life stats would be ignored. Rabin also used another ability, deactivate inactive, select stat, agility. Immediately, Rabin's agility stat, which had been suppressed, was released. Seeing the girl finally reveal her power took Arizar by surprise. She drew her sword, revealing her intentions. "I'm going to end this quickly and silence the witness." While Arizar was still surprised by the last part, Rabin activated a new ability, activate trait Warlord's Rebirth. With a red energy shining on the usurper's sword, Rabin raised it, activating Arizar's summoned abilities. The girl leapt, dozens of meters above the professor so he couldn't see her, aiming at the approaching army of monsters. Wielding her sword, Rabin unleashed an energy attack that swept away everything in front of her, like an avalanche descending from a crimson sky. All the monsters simply evaporated before that power. Jae-sok, who was almost caught by the attack, gritted his teeth trying to hold his ground and was soon left speechless. Rabin swung her sword, unleashing energy slashes to instantly eliminate the monsters. With a serious look, she continued her silent assault. For Choi Jae-sok, such a level couldn't be found in Korea. Even compared to the world's top rankers, she would not pale in comparison. It was possible that the abilities the girl displayed surpassed any skills that could be found on Earth. Following closely behind Rabin, Arizar revealed his surprise. "Using my abilities so perfectly, when did you analyze and master all of them?" Rabin didn't answer, ending the conversation as she was far too busy. Looking over the battlefield, she raised her sword upon noticing that only one monster remained. The monster at the top of the hill was precisely the humanoid with animal legs and a bird's beak, the one that had launched the attack at the beginning. Opening its beak once more, it unleashed a sharp burst of sound, trying to stop the girl. However, sharp lines appeared in an attack as crimson as Rabin's gaze. In seconds, the girl eliminated the last remaining monster, turning it into sliced chicken. Jae-sok could hardly believe that the girl had defeated the boss monster with just one attack. After taking out the monsters, Rabin walked toward the instructor, who had dropped his daggers out of sheer fear. Before Jae-sok realized it, Rabin had already placed her sword against his neck. Coldly, she revealed the reason for her threat. "Honestly, I feel like you've seen too much. You know that too, don't you?" Faced with the girl's words, as sharp as the sword she held, the instructor swallowed hard. Desperately, Rizar tried to stop Rabin. "Wait a minute. Are you really going to do this? This human even got hurt trying to protect you. Isn't this going too far?" While Rizar desperately tried to protect the human, who seemed like a good guy, Jae-sok pointed at him. "Hey, is that a constellation?" A deafening silence fell among the three. Having been found out, Rizar broke out in a cold sweat, changing her mind about eliminating Jae-sok, which made Rabin furious at the sudden change in attitude. "I told you to keep quiet so people wouldn't hear you. Don't you remember?" Rabin sighed, annoyed. "This is a problem. Jae-sok, you've just uncovered another secret you shouldn't have. Having gotten the instructor into trouble while trying to help him, Rezar tried to apologize to him profusely. Seeing that his fate was in the girl's hands, Jisok sat down on the floor and unexpectedly remarked, "I see. Hyun Rabin, as I thought, you were the guardian of deceit, right?" Upon hearing the question, Rabin was so surprised that she fell silent. Jisok looked at the iron sword that Hyun Rabin carried. Although it looked completely ordinary, even with his skill and piercing eyes, he couldn't analyze it. On the day he met Rabin outside the academy and tried to analyze her, Jisok saw his constellation, the nearest light, temporarily disappear, and his monocle was destroyed as well. Jisok knew at that moment that the vast and unfathomable existence Hyun Rabin carried could only be something that far surpassed his own constellation. Thinking more about it, he realized that there had always been something odd about Rabin's laziness, who always finished everything just well enough to avoid failing. To the girl's surprise, Che Jisok revealed something. "If what I said is true, you're in danger." It wasn't reported in the media, but all rankers above SS rank received a mission to eliminate the Guardian of Deceit. Rabin and Rezar were surprised, but she soon remembered a notification she had received on the day she picked up the sword. The administrator system would start treating her as an enemy. Jisok stated that his guild, Solaris, had opposed this mission, so she would be protected if she officially joined the guild. That was the reason he had become her mentor, to try to recruit her in order to protect her. When Jisok mentioned protection, both Rabin and Rezar were left confused and thoughtful. That's why Hyun Rabin asked, "Sorry to interrupt your serious moment, but who's protecting whom here? Do you really think I need someone else to protect me?" It was then that Jisok realized that surrounded by monster corpses, he was completely wounded, while the girl he claimed to protect was totally unharmed. All he could do was laugh, left speechless. Rabin couldn't help but blame the Rezar sword for the situation they had gotten into. "Jiao, don't try to pretend nothing happened. I clearly told you to stay quiet." Throwing the spirit back into the sword where it resided, Hyun Rabin punished him. Hearing the girl arguing with the constellation spirit, Jisok remembered the day he tried to sit with her in the cafeteria. She had said that the seat in front of her belonged to someone named Kim Jiao. Now Jisok understood that it hadn't been a joke. Having punished Jiao, Hyun Rabin pointed her sword at Jisok. "All right, now it's your turn." With a cold look, she questioned how he knew she was the guardian of deception. Jisok sighed and placed his hands on his legs. Amidst the light, he conjured a sundial, an item of immeasurable rank. Since ancient times, the sun had been revered as a deity. Such an item, used by special classes connected to the sun, could grant glimpses of the truth in the future. Upon seeing the item, Jiao was incredulous. Foresight abilities? This guy has a rogue class, but possesses high-level foresight abilities. Jisok acted humbly, claiming he wasn't that amazing, since everything he saw was vague and abstract. That's why he never knew how strong Rabin was, and that's why he made the mistake of entering the mirrored dungeon with her. Determined to reveal his secret trump card, Jisei created a flash of light. A monocle appeared on his face. Piercing gaze and sundial, perception and foresight. I possessed the abilities to see everything ahead of others. After putting away his items, he smiled, asking if Rabin understood that he hadn't heard about her from anyone or investigated her. This would ensure that no information had been leaked. After understanding the matter, Rabin asked about the mission to eliminate the Guardian of Deception. Jisok was straightforward. The sole purpose of the mission was to eliminate her. Rabin asked what the reward was, and Jisok revealed that whoever completed it would receive 10 resurrection stones. The quality of the reward surprised even Jiao. Lowering his head, Jisok revealed that both he and the guildmaster were against the mission, since eliminating a person just for a mission was not reasonable. Hearing how Choi Jisok and his guild thought brought some thoughts to Hyun Rabin's mind, especially after Choi Jisok took her sword and drew it closer to himself as he said, "It's all true. Hyun Rabin, we're on your side." Rabin was still surprised, but decided to give them the benefit of the doubt. Later, when the sun was about to set over the Hunter Training Center, Jiao accompanied the protagonist while praising her. Unlike her, who collapsed onto the bed mentally exhausted, the sword spirit showed its excitement, returning from a dungeon as they protected each other's secrets like good friends. What a true human bond. Rabin, however, corrected Jiao on one thing. "I never planned to eliminate Choi Jisok, you know?" The sword spirit, Rezar, was confused and asked what that whole scene was about, with her pointing her sword and everything. With her eyes closed, Rabin stated that she needed to do that at least to get some information. She also reminded the spirit that Choi Jisok was not someone they could easily eliminate. Confused, Jiao asked what she meant. That was when she reminded him. The other seer, the constellation near the light, saw everything, from beginning to end. Rabin stated that the twin constellation must have already gone to her other contractor and revealed everything she had seen. Therefore, even if they eliminated Choi Jisok, the constellation could not be silenced. She was afraid that by messing with Ji-sok, the constellation's other contractor would not just stand by. Moreover, the loss of a double S-rank hunter, beloved by South Korea, would drive the world mad. Rabin also revealed that there was another reason to trust Choi Ji-sok. Zhao Zhao became curious to know what the reason was, and Rabin quickly reminded him of the moment when Ji-sok brought the sword close to his own neck. At that time, if anything had gone wrong, Ji-sok would have become just a memory, because coincidentally, the void contagion ability which ignored my enemy's total health points was still active. Realizing that they could have finished off Ji-sok with a single blow if he had been marked as an enemy, Zhao Zhao was so surprised that his eyes nearly popped out. That was why Rabin believed in Ji-sok, because he had proven his innocence by risking his own life without even knowing it. Such a situation only unfolded in a satisfactory way because Rabin activated the ability as enemy's life and not as opponent's life. Changing the subject, Rabin put her hand in her pocket. From there, she took out a vial filled with a fiery red liquid. Ji-sok had given that potion to Rabin as a token of gratitude for all her hard work cleaning the dungeon. After thinking about Ji-sok's actions, she could only comment, "This guy is really strange. Who would give a gift to someone who pointed a sword at them?" Somewhere else, someone was hurriedly using a computer. It was none other than Ji-sok, who was being questioned by his constellation about what he was doing. Ji-sok was thinking about Hyun Rabin, the instructor who was having coffee. He thought that, after finding out the system had assigned a mission to eliminate the Guardian of Deceit and having his strength exposed to the continent's high rankers, any normal person would be trembling with anxiety. Thinking for a moment, Ji-sok remembered something. That girl likes Yondankatsu, doesn't she? Sometime later, carrying a Yondankatsu bag, Ji-sok headed to Rabin's dormitory and called out to her. However, when he didn't get a response, Ji-sok assumed she was sleeping. At that moment, the door to the room opened and, shocked to see her, Ji-sok asked, "What are you doing?" When he entered the girl's room, Ji-sok was startled to see her spreading various clothes all over the place. "What are you doing? The practical class starts in 5 minutes, you know that?" However, even with the teacher's warning, Rabin said she would skip the training class with him because she had a meeting to attend. Bitterly, Ji-sok asked if she at least remembered that there was a mission out for her elimination. However, Rabin didn't even seem to care much. After thinking for a moment, she decided to disable the attribute deactivation, restoring her health points to the original 2 billion. That's why she didn't need to worry about being attacked. Confident, she beamed as she asked the tutor, "It's not like worrying would change anything, right?" With the same smile, she gave a warning that startled Ji-sok. "Let's not talk about each other's secrets. If word gets out and people start crowding around, we won't even be able to go out together." A faint smile returned to the teacher's face when Rabin changed the subject, catching the scent of pork ribs made at Yondan. For Ji-sok, Rabin's reaction was better than if she hadn't reacted at all. Then, he handed her the bag of food. While Rabin ate the snack Ji-sok had brought, she used her phone to do some research. Suddenly, she shouted furiously when she saw something. "Hey, Zhao Zhao! You used my money to buy web novels again, didn't you?" Zhao Zhao tried to dodge the blame, but had his sword stepped on by the furious girl. With her mouth full, Rabin exclaimed, "I can see the entire purchase history. You'd better confess while you still can." Sweating nervously, Zhao Zhao raised the tablet, showing the screen to Rabin as he apologized. "I heard there's a genre about hunters and I got curious. I just couldn't let it pass." Zhao Zhao also showed the tablet to Ji-sok, who was surprised to see the theme. Looking at the novels that had been released decades ago, Zhao Zhao asked curiously, how did humans know all this in advance? Eating the pork ribs he had brought for a snack, Ji-sok shared the same opinion. "That's right. When the gate incident happened, everyone was freaking out, saying that hunter stories were becoming reality. Some famous titles even made it into the record books as the world's best bestsellers. They became read worldwide." Surprised, Zhao Zhao remarked that it was totally worth reading these works to build a good resume. Snorting, Rabin said he understood why Zhao Zhao read that kind of thing, but asked why he read fantasy romance. Having his secret taste discovered, Zhao Zhao was shocked and hid his face behind the tablet so he wouldn't be seen. Picking up the phone and looking at the books Zhao Zhao had bought, she commented, "If it were things like contemporary romance or stories about real life, I could say you're curious about human relationships, but why are you reading fantasy romance? Even hardcore titles?" On Rabin's phone screen was the cover of one of the novels, where a woman was holding a chain attached to a collar around the king's neck. Looking away, Zhao Zhao revealed, "These things kind of remind me of how I used to live." Rabin was surprised by the revelation, and seeing Zhao Zhao hide his face, she asked, "Are you crying?" Seeing that Zhao Zhao didn't want to look at her, Rabin felt extremely guilty. "Hey, I'm sorry. If you have a reason, read all the fantasy novels you want. I'll cover the cost of 10,000 won a month for that." A little more relieved, Zhao Zhao forced himself to stop crying, saying that he would ask for permission next time. While continuing his snack, Ji-sok watched the pair's interaction. He thought he had seen everything in life, but this was the first time he saw a constellation reading a web novel. He understood that since money was being spent and web novels were being read, it meant that praying could physically interfere with the world. In his mind, the constellation close to the light sent a message expressing her frustration. This was the most the constellation could do, so it was better to stay quiet to avoid causing chaos if the matter leaked out. Changing the subject, Ji-sok asked Rabin when her meeting would take place. Confused, the girl revealed that it would only be in the afternoon. This made Ji-sok frown, annoyed. What? Then you should be training. To avoid exerting herself, Rabin put a plan into action. She tried to smile sweetly like a flower to get out of the obligation. I hope we're already doing well. However, her attempt to charm the tutor failed, since her face was dirty. In a bar, someone slammed a can of Guaraná on the table, complaining about how badly work was going. Another person complained about how their engineering job had been ruined because of the portals. Another, who was studying pharmacy, was thinking about dropping out, just like many others. A girl sighed heavily, venting, I spent all my sanity in medical school and lost all my jobs to the healers. Next to her, another woman was surprised that even pharmacists and doctors had to worry about their jobs. However, at the table there was an excited young man. We're doing really well here. We have a lot of construction to do these days. The frustrated girl snorted. Oh, Mr. Architect, that's only because the monsters keep destroying all the buildings. Don't be so happy about it. Even happier than the engineer was a blonde man with short hair. Hunters have been making a lot of money lately. His name was Park Min-soo, a C-rank hunter, the only hunter in the class besides Kang Tae-seo. At that table of 8 people, he was the only one boasting so much that he practically shone, making the others fall silent. Some people even slapped their own faces, unable to believe that Park Min-soo was bragging so much, even though he was only a C-rank, nowhere near Kang Tae-seo. Even against her will, one of the girls interacted with him. All right, Min-soo, how have things been going for you these days? Glowing with pride, Min-soo said that he had tried to apply to the Solaris Guild for a trial contract. Next to him, a young man pretended to care. Wow, Solaris, seriously? Not noticing the sarcasm, Park Min-soo said he was still waiting for the results, even though I don't know if I'll get in, whatever. Changing the subject, Park Min-soo tried to reassure his friends, saying that these days many people couldn't even go to college because of the portals, and tried to recall someone who hadn't managed to graduate. Everyone remembered the same person, Hyun Rabin. At that moment, someone entered the bar while everyone was talking. Curious, Park Min-soo asked if anyone knew what Rabin was up to, but no one had any idea since nobody talked to her. It was at that moment that a girl's voice came from behind them all. I'm just surviving, I guess. Park Min-soo was surprised when he turned around and found himself face to face with Hyun Rabin. Making a peace sign, Rabin greeted everyone. Long time no see, I didn't know you all cared so much about me. With a bright smile that masked her mockery, Park Min-soo insisted that of course he cared. As Rabin sat down next to him, Min-soo said he'd heard a lot about her. He gave a fake smile and commented, I heard you've been jumping from job to job, all related to portals. Squeezing Rabin's shoulder, he told her to call him if she ever needed a job, revealing that he was a rank C hunter. Hearing the comment, Hyun Rabin was surprised. Did you say you're a rank C? With a smug smile, he tried to feign some humility. Yes, but these days, even being a rank C doesn't mean much. A lot of rank Cs don't make it. With a displeased tone, Hyun Rabin commented, Rank C? I'm jealous. Park Min-soo was confused, since Rabin's gloomy expression didn't match someone who would be jealous. She asked irritably, so you don't have to do any personal training, right? No mentoring or anything like that? Park Min-soo was confused when he heard Hyun Rabin mention those things. That's when the young man next to Park Min-soo commented, Ah, Min-soo applied to Solaris. Hearing the comment, something clicked in Min-soo's mind. He immediately put on a smug face. Yeah, I applied, though I don't know if I'll get in. This time, Hyun Rabin looked confused and asked, No scout contacted you? Min-soo's smug expression turned confused, and he felt 2 hands grip his shoulders heavily. Annoyed, Rabin stared deep into Min-soo's vacant eyes. No one is chasing after you like crazy? No one is asking if you want to join a guild? Does that mean they don't care until you actually apply? Rabin started trembling, feeling the urge to curse the heavens. The girl nearly fell out of her chair, covering her face with her hands, shaking with envy down to her bones. Rabin's strange reaction worried her friends, who tried to figure out what was going on. Is it really such a big deal, Min-soo, not to be training? Min-soo, feeling slighted, wondered if Rabin was actually jealous. He ground his teeth furiously. Don't be ridiculous, Hyun Rabin. This isn't the time for you to act like this toward me, is it? With a contemptuous look, he tried to belittle the girl. You dropped out of school and have been jumping from job to job. You should be begging me to get you a job. Seeing that Min-soo was already drunk, some colleagues tried to stop him, but he didn't care about speaking his mind. His look of contempt was as obvious as his words. You have nothing. Do you have something up your sleeve? Or what? Ah, you used to be friends with Kang Tae-seo, but you two don't even talk anymore, do you? Hyun Rabin, who was on the verge of tears from sheer envy, paused for a moment. She even startled Park Min-soo when she shot back. And if I do, what are you going to do about it? Apologize? Are you going to apologize for what you did to him? If you're going to get on your knees and beg Kang Tae-seo for forgiveness, then maybe, just maybe, I'll consider reaching out again. Memories of a boy who was despised, belittled, and cast aside by his classmates surfaced in Hyun Rabin's mind, and her expression turned furious. Seeing a piece of trash like you living in peace is not something I want, she said. Park Min-soo backed away when Rabin asked if he had ever tried to contact Kang Tae-seo, since he had never felt any desire to apologize. Seeing how he remained silent, Rabin smiled. Yeah, just as I thought, you're too arrogant to apologize, so you pretend nothing happened and just move on. You tried to join Solaris just to avoid running into Kang Tae-seo at Caligo, didn't you? Hearing Hyun Rabin's words, their former classmates were surprised. Park Min-soo, the accused, retorted, What do you know? That was just friendly teasing. An intimidating look flashed in Hyun Rabin's eyes when she heard Min-soo's excuse. The C-rank hunter clenched his teeth in slight fear, wondering what was up with the girl in front of him. Park Min-soo felt as if he were facing an entity from the underworld, a pure, sinister skeleton. However, he quickly recovered, telling himself it was all in his head, and countered the accusations. I wasn't avoiding him on purpose. I was just waiting for the right moment to apologize, he snorted, giving a hollow excuse. I only signed up for Solaris because an acquaintance asked me to. Rabin was surprised to hear this, and, picking up her phone, she commented, This is interesting. Actually, I know the vice leader of that guild. Park Min-soo's eyes nearly popped out of his face when he heard Rabin. However, he told himself that it was just a bluff. With a suspicious look, he asked, Do you know the vice leader of the Solaris Guild? Habin thought for a moment as he looked at his phone, then showed his conversation with Chae Ji-sok to Park Min-soo, commenting, We're companions who share pork ribs, I think. Park Min-soo, however, smirked mockingly. Come on, at least try harder when you lie. You just saved someone else's number under his name, didn't you? Suddenly, an excited voice interrupted their argument. Guys, that's not the important point right now. Everyone turned to look at the young man holding his phone. To everyone's surprise, he shouted, Tae-suk is coming! Even Hyun Ha-bin was surprised. What? Kang Tae-suk is coming? Everyone gathered around a girl, who told them all, He suddenly messaged me, asking if Ha-bin was here. I told him she was. Then he said he would come. As everyone got excited to see Kang Tae-suk, Hyun Ha-bin was left speechless. After surviving all kinds of tragic situations, Hyun Ha-bin felt her instincts telling her she needed to leave right then. Planning to leave before Kang Tae-suk arrived, she stood up and said, Guys, I'm heading out now. Take care. Trying to avoid any trouble, she planned to make her escape. However, Park Min-soo approached her, grabbing her shoulder. Hey, if you're running away, does that mean you were lying about talking to him? Annoyed, Ha-bin snapped back at him. Do I look like you or something? While the two argued and Ha-bin grabbed Park Min-soo's face, almost tearing it off, the door opened. Park Tae-suk entered the bar right at the peak of the fight and was met with the unexpected scene. Everyone was shocked to see Kang Tae-suk after such a long time. He shone as if he were a painting, too unreal to be true. The girl who had received a message from Kang Tae-suk stood up, offering him a seat. On the other side of the table, the architect asked Kang Tae-suk how he was doing. While some people asked if they could get autographs for their siblings, Kang Tae-suk slowly walked in a certain direction. He stopped in front of Hyun Ha-bin, and after a minute of silence he spoke, It's been a long time since I've seen you. Ha-bin replied in the same monotone, Yes, it's been a long time. With a smile, Ha-bin tried to slip away, but Kang Tae-suk didn't let her, grabbing her by the hood. Wait, I came here because of you. Crying so much that her face was washed with tears, Ha-bin cursed herself for coming to the meeting. Kang Tae-suk got straight to the point. I'm here because I want to offer you a spot at Caligo. Hearing Tae-suk's offer, some people started to ask each other why he had invited Hyun Ha-bin, of all people, to join Caligo. Confused, Kang Tae-suk asked, Wait, none of you know yet? Hyun Ha-bin is an A-rank hunter. The sudden revelation from Tae-suk left everyone at the alumni meeting frozen. Everyone stared wide-eyed like fish. What did you say? A-rank? Hyun Ha-bin? No way, there are 3 hunters in our class? On one side, Park Min-soo was in disbelief. On the other, Hyun Ha-bin rolled her eyes, nearly losing her sanity. Park Tae-suk didn't want to lose a potential hunter. Hyun Ha-bin, I don't know which other guild made you an offer, but I'll double whatever they offered you. Annoyed, Ha-bin thanked him but said she wouldn't be joining him. Some girls started talking among themselves, recalling what they had seen earlier. Didn't she say she knew the vice master of the Solaris Guild? So does that mean she's already in Solaris? Startled by the side conversations, Hyun Ha-bin shouted, shifting the focus. "Oh right, Tae-suk. I completely forgot." She pointed at Min-soo, a smile on her face. "Look, Min-soo said he wanted to apologize to you." Park Min-soo, who was trying to slip away, was caught off guard. Grabbing Park Min-soo by the shoulders, she dragged him over to Tae-suk. "Didn't you say you'd apologize if you got the chance? Here it is. Come on, apologize. A chance for you to redeem yourself and become a reformed Min-soo." Sweating like a horse, Min-soo lowered his head, wondering if Tae-suk would do something to him in retaliation for the past. Avoiding Tae-suk's eyes, he stammered as he apologized. "I'm sorry for what I did. I was wrong. There's no way I can make up for it." Park Tae-suk sighed when he heard the apology. "Oh, really?" Trembling, Min-soo wondered if he was about to be attacked right then. He lifted his face, and as soon as his eyes met Tae-suk's cold gaze, he was startled. Sanity left Park Min-soo's body and, in front of everyone, he simply fainted from fear, collapsing onto one of the benches and on top of a former classmate. This allowed Tae-suk to return to his main topic. "Hyun Ha-bin, we want you in Caligo. Tell us your terms." Ha-bin was almost tearing himself apart, wondering what was up with this guy. While Park Min-soo was tossed into a corner of the bar and everyone laughed at him, Tae-suk kept pressing the recruitment issue. While Hyun Ha-bin kept insisting that she wasn't planning to join a guild, she received a telepathic message. Kim Jiao wanted to know who the guy in front of them was, unable to even think straight. Ha-bin told him to remember the deal and keep quiet. However, Jiao wanted to know what was up with this Kang Tae-suk. Raising an eyebrow, Ha-bin hoped there wasn't anything serious. Telepathically, Jiao told Ha-bin that there was something strange about Tae-suk's constellation. Ha-bin didn't believe it. However, Jiao, who was watching Park Tae-seo through her eyes, pleaded with her to trust him. Hyun Ha-bin corrected Jiao, stating that, to begin with, Kang Tae-seo didn't have a constellation. However, Jiao didn't believe that. The protagonist paused to think for a moment, recalling how little she had actually spoken with Park Tae-seo. She remembered that the information she had about Kang Tae-seo not having a constellation had come from the internet. This made her question herself, does he really not have a constellation? Continuing to read the comments about Kang Tae-seo that day, she saw a fan of the Caligo Guild arguing with another hunter about the subject. However, the messages started to show errors, apparently because the authors had deleted them. This made her believe it was a lie. Since her phone was overheating that day, she didn't look up anything else about Kang Tae-seo. Now, faced with a problem, she decided that the best thing to do would be to go home and talk more with Jiao about the matter. She frowned, vowing internally, "Kang Tae-seo, if that's how you want to play, then I'll do things my own way too." Seeing Hyun Ha-bin fall silent, Kang Tae-seo tried to snap her out of it. "Hyun Ha-bin, are you listening to me? Join Caligo." But she repeated, "I already said no." While Kang Tae-seo was trying to convince her, Hyun Ha-bin reached behind her and grabbed a plate of appetizers. She then snapped irritably, "I already told you I'm not joining your guild." No. How many times do I have to say it? I'm not joining any guild." Kang Tae-seo tried to persuade her once again, but that only made her more annoyed. With the plate of snacks in hand, she started throwing them at Kang Tae-seo. "Take this and go away." Even as he was being hit by the snacks, Kang Tae-seo insisted, "You might change your mind after having a good experience." However, when Kang Tae-seo looked to where Hyun Ha-bin should have been, he discovered that she had disappeared. Having run out to the street, Ha-bin sighed, though excitedly, "I managed to escape." However, this only made Kang Tae-seo even more curious, as he wondered why she had run away. In a large hotel, a disguised person was hiding from the public eye. In one of the rooms, a desk phone rang. Hyun Seo answered the call, and on the other end, the person informed him. "About the target you mentioned, it seems she received offers from both the Solaris Guild and Caligo." Curious, Seo asked which guild the target had chosen. However, he was shocked to hear that Hyun Ha-bin had rejected both guilds. Worried, he asked if there was any other news. The informant revealed everything he had discovered. Other than that, her daily activities include eating takeout food, being late for classes, and things like that. Hyun Seo couldn't believe what he was hearing. He laughed in desperation, asking that his sister at least be of some use. He leaned back in his office chair, remembering how his sister used to be a model student, recognized by everyone before the Big Pot incident. In the previous cycle, Hyun Ha-bin had become the world's strongest hunter, and her strength allowed her to achieve incredible feats as she fought non-stop. Hyun Seo truly believed that maybe his sister was secretly doing something behind the scenes. However, something worried Hyun Seo more than his sister's laziness. In front of him was a special mission: eliminate the Guardian of Deceit. Hyun Seo couldn't understand why the system was so concerned about his sister, who was just relaxing and not causing any trouble. Hyun Seo then thought of something and took out the cell phone from his pocket. Soon, a man on the other end of the call answered, "Yes, this is the management office of the Espes Association." However, as soon as he heard the voice of his president, the man almost choked, asking what had happened. Seo ordered, "For the next SBES conference, due to the addition of an important item to the agenda, I am moving the schedule up a bit under my authority." Hyun Seo tried to find a plausible topic to justify moving the meeting up and saw a book on his desk, 50 Methods to Conquer the Dungeon, end screen, and he stated over the phone, "Inform them that we have found a method to reach the 50th floor of the tower." The man on the phone was startled when he heard about the 50th floor, since no one had even made it past the 26th floor. While the man from the agency tried to understand what was going on, Hyun Seo ended the call. Hyun Seo was doing exactly this as an attempt to get his sister to make an effort to join them. At the same time, Yao Jiao was following Hyun Rabin, confused. "I thought you were happy to have escaped." With her hands in her pockets, Rabin said she was worried about Kang Tae-seo. "They say he reached the pinnacle of humanity without a constellation, and I believed it, but now I found out he had one all along. I feel betrayed." Changing the subject, Rabin asked Zhao Zhao if he could sense other constellations. Zhao Zhao replied that he could sense most of them, although it depended on the rank of the sacred object, since sometimes it would be impossible to determine. If someone tried to hide it, only faint traces could be sensed. Hearing the explanation, Rabin asked about Tae-seo. Thoughtfully, Zhao Zhao confirmed that Tae-seo was trying to hide his constellation. Zhao Zhao sensed a strange energy inside Kang Tae-seo on the level of a sacred item. However, Zhao Zhao had felt a bad feeling. Curious, Rabin asked if anyone besides him could detect constellations, but Zhao Zhao reassured her, "Probably not. Unless I deliberately reveal my presence, no one will discover me." This irritated her to the point of wanting to argue. "Then make sure you keep yourself hidden." Even with Zhao Zhao confidently saying he would stay hidden, she couldn't fully trust him after he had exposed himself recently. Although the meeting had been unexpectedly exhausting, Rabin realized he had left early enough to have some free time. Hearing Rabin say he wanted to do something he had been putting off, Zhao Zhao wondered what it could be. When he got home, Rabin opened a reward screen for having conquered the mirror dungeon. Non-blooming dragon's breath and a card that shouldn't exist. Zhao Zhao's eyes nearly popped out of her spirit, wondering why she had put this off. In disbelief, he asked, "Don't tell me you were just being lazy?" However, Rabin explained that since he had to interrogate Chai Ji-sok, he hadn't been able to check the reward. Furious, Zhao Zhao reminded him that she could have checked it after leaving the gate. However, Rabin just kept making more excuses, until Zhao Zhao insisted so much that she finally decided to check the rewards right then and there. Looking at the names of the items, Rabin couldn't figure out much. Even so, she decided to click the button to claim the rewards. As soon as she pressed the button, a burst of light blinded her. When the light began to fade, Rabin opened her eyes again, trying to see what had appeared. She was surprised to find an egg and a letter. The letter must have been the item called "Letter That Shouldn't Exist," while the blue and pink egg was probably the non-blooming dragon's breath mentioned in the quest. Zhao Zhao, who was with her, figured she was right. Hyun Rabin carefully picked up the egg, which was covered in scales, trying to examine it, and wondered if she should just let it sit and rot in her inventory. Hugging the egg, which was bigger than her own head, the girl asked Zhao Zhao what she should do, since theoretically she wasn't supposed to cook it. While Zhao Zhao was left speechless by the question, the egg in Hyun Rabin's arms began to tremble and unexpectedly cracked. Rabin set the egg down on the ground. She and Zhao Zhao tried to see what was happening. Quickly, a tiny hand broke through the egg from the inside. Little horns also appeared, and from inside the green and pink egg, a tiny monster, a baby dragon, emerged. The dragon, trying to get out of the egg, broke the rest of the shell. In Hyun Rabin's arms, the dragon treated her like its mother, rubbing against her while wagging its tail, leaving the girl amazed at how cute it was. Curious, Zhao Zhao went over to the letter that shouldn't exist, which was on the table. "There must be something about this little guy in this letter, right?" While the little dragon climbed onto Hyun Rabin's head as if she were a small mountain, Zhao Zhao held up the letter to her contractor, hurriedly asking her to read it. With the little dragon resting on her head, Hyun Rabin opened the letter, also curious. However, what she saw was text with blurred letters, in a dialect she could barely understand. Immediately, a voice appeared in her mind. "If you are reading this, it means you have already destroyed the mirror dungeon once. Please take care of Lieber. He likes to eat well-cooked chicken breast, and also eats the vegetables you serve him. He gets scared of sleeping alone and loves sweet desserts." Hearing the name Lieber, Hyun guessed it must be referring to the dragon climbing on her. She was, however, confused. The little dragon had just been born, yet there were several specific instructions on how she should raise him. At least, with her affection, the little dragon seemed to fall asleep on her shoulder. Even so, she remained confused, as there were many parts of the text that were smudged, and she couldn't read part of the letter properly. Suddenly, Hyun Rabin found a part of the letter that she could read without any trouble. At the end of the letter, there was a small note. I don't care whether you can stop the apocalypse or not, but if you really broke the system, you can completely reconfigure all the parameters of this place. That means you can even go back in time to when your parents were still alive. You can erase the gate incident entirely and restore everything to how it should be. Unexpectedly, the person who had written that letter seemed to be none other than Hyun Rabin herself, but from a different timeline than the one in which she was reading. Unaware of this fact, Rabin read the letter, wondering if everything could really be undone. Without expecting anything, she continued to read. This is a message to tell you not to give up. Honestly, you miss the old days too, don't you? After reading the letter, Rabin tossed it into her inventory, commenting, "This is kind of creepy, you know?" Seeing the girl's reaction, Zhao Zhao asked if she could really read it. Hyun Rabin finally remembered that Zhao Zhao had said she couldn't read that letter. The spiritual being asked if the entire text wasn't blurred for her as well. Even though the text was blurred, Hyun Rabin asked if he couldn't read her thoughts, since he was the constellation connected to her. However, Zhao Zhao stated that she also couldn't read the girl's thoughts about the letter. Curious, he asked if she managed to read it, even with the text blurred. While petting the little dragon in her lap, Rabin revealed that she was able to read what he couldn't. No matter how much it was filtered or wrapped in vague words, I couldn't help but see through it. That letter, written in gray ink, Hyun Rabin recognized the handwriting. It was her own handwriting. However, she had never written that letter, nor could she imagine ever having written it. Whether it was a trap or a purpose that shouldn't exist, as the name itself suggested, Hyun Rabin wondered who had really written the letter she had just read. The next day, the tutor and vice leader of the Solaris Guild knocked on Hyun Rabin's door once again. "Rabin, let's train." When the door was opened, Ji-sok was surprised to see Rabin already awake, but she was visibly annoyed, since he just wouldn't give up. Ji-sok saw Rabin as someone even more stubborn than himself, since she consistently failed to prepare for training. Letting him into her quarters, Rabin huffed, "If you work this hard, the students are going to stop liking you." Confused to see Hyun Rabin wrapping something up with a sheet, the instructor tried to ask what she was doing. Rabin tried to come up with an excuse, but realized the only way out of the situation was to give the teacher an intimidating glare. "Hey, what are you looking at?" Before Choi Ji-sok could escape Hyun Rabin's gaze, whatever was under the sheet slipped out. The little dragon jumped into the teacher's arms. Despite his surprise, Ji-sok caught the little dragon in his arms. "What is this? An animal? You can't keep pets in the training center." Hyun Rabin rushed to take the little dragon from her teacher's hands. "No, Bia, he doesn't." Both Ji-sok and Jaljal were confused by the pet's name. Jaljal was the most alarmed, knowing the dragon's true identity. "What kind of name is that? What are you talking about? What kind of person would name a dragon like that?" Confused, Ji-sok asked when Rabin had brought an animal into the training center. She just pretended not to understand, hiding the little dragon in her arms. "Oh, so it's not allowed to bring animals?" However, Ji-sok had already figured out the truth, which made him irritated. "This isn't just any ordinary animal. Hey, this is a dragon, isn't it?" Seeing the teacher point at Bia, Rabin tried to protect him, pretending not to know anything. "What? Isn't he?" Ji-sok, however, after looking closely at Bia, confirmed, "Yes, he is. You must have used a skill to hide the wings and horns, but you can't fool my eyes." The instructor became even more excited when he remembered that this was the boss monster from the mirrored dungeon. "I knew this was a dragon, and it doesn't make sense for you, who hates trouble, to go through all the bureaucracy to register a pet. No one has ever managed to register a dragon before. What's going on? Don't try to make up excuses." Faced with the teachers shouting, Rabin rolled his eyes, since his ears were already hurting. Placing the little dragon on her bed, Hyun Rabin told the truth. He was the result of a dungeon quest reward. However, she reminded Ji-sok, "This is a secret. You must not tell anyone." Ji-sok already guessed why, because if people find out, you won't be able to enjoy your life, right? As Ji-sok expected, that was the reason. Confused, Ji-sok asked why she didn't put the little dragon in her inventory if she wanted to hide it. The question left Hyun Rabin confused. Then the tutor, sitting on the floor, explained, "Since it's your first time, you might not know. As soon as you register a pet, a secondary space opens up where they can rest. However, its size and comfort depend on the player's level." Ji-sok figured that with Rabin's level, her secret space must be about the size of a hotel room. Upon learning about this special inventory, she realized it would be better to keep her dragon inside it so he wouldn't be discovered. However, she remembered something that was written in the blurred letter. "Please take care of River. He gets scared when he sleeps alone." On a fateful night, 5 years ago, torrential rain battered the windows of a house where the lights were off. A voice on the television reported on the various mysterious holes that kept appearing in the sky and how the number of people missing because of the monsters that came out of the portal was still uncertain. Soaked by the rain, lit only by the glow of the television, Rabin suffered more and more, realizing she was alone. During that time, when every day became agonizing and it was impossible to sleep at night, she begged for someone to stay by her side. She wished she would never have to go through nights like those again. With her head down, Rabin declared, "No matter how busy I am, I'll make sure he sleeps with me every night." Ji-Sok was surprised and worried about Hyun Rabin. But before he could say anything comforting, she shouted, "I really don't want to go train." Trying to get out of training, Rabin asked her mentor if he would mind if she didn't go with him to the training. Ji-Sok couldn't believe that was what she had to say, with fury taking over her body to the point of flaring up. "I'll let the training slide, but if anyone dares to disturb my peaceful routine again, they'll have to deal with me." Afraid of becoming the target of Rabin's wrath, the mentor lowered his head and asked what she planned to do. Suddenly, someone started banging on the door of the room, shouting, "Is student Hyun Rabin here? Someone from Caligo is looking for you." Both Rabin and Ji-Sok were surprised. Rabin, because she couldn't believe Kang Tae-sok had gone so far to look for her. This made her even angrier, to the point where she swore he wouldn't escape her grasp. However, the person outside wasn't Kang Tae-suk, but a man in a suit, who greeted Rabin. They met in a cafe, where he revealed that the master of the Caligo Guild wanted to speak with her, and so they had scheduled an urgent meeting. Since today's training session is mandatory, she can't be excused from it. With this meeting, today's training will be completely replaced and processed as a practical substitute session. Realizing she could swap the combat training class for something else, Rabin rolled her eyes at her tutor. "Why have you never done something like this?" Smiling, Jin-Sok asked if it made sense for a mentor to encourage his student to skip classes. Standing up, the Caligo representative announced that the car was ready. Rabin stood up as well, ready to go with him. Jin-Sok ran after Rabin, trying to stop her from getting into the car. "Are you really going to join Caligo?" Rabin was about to explain when Jin-Suk tried to persuade her. "Don't go. This seems a little suspicious. Caligo has no reason to go after an A rank. It could be a trap. Or maybe they've found out who you are, your true abilities." Rabin was confused by all the nonsense Che Jin-Sok was saying. "Have you never done a background check on me before? I thought you knew a lot more." Getting ready to get into the car, Hyun Rabin revealed that Kang Tae-seok, the leader of the Caligo Guild, was actually her former classmate. "If it were just about a guild, I would run away, but he wouldn't capture a friend, right? That's how things work in Korea. We're bound by blood, by regional ties, and also by school connections." With that, Jin-Sok watched the girl say goodbye and get into the car. The taxi drove off, leaving the vice master of the Solaris Guild behind. Confused, he repeated the girl's words and muttered to himself, "Kang Tae-sok from Caligo is known for being the least influenced by that sort of thing." Suspecting that something was going on, Jin-Sok took out his phone. The person he called, a woman with long golden hair, answered promptly and asked what had happened. Jin-Sok got straight to the point. "It's the young Hyun Rabin. Since yesterday, Caligo has started to take an interest in her." After explaining what was happening, Jin-Sok made a decision and announced, "Regarding the collaboration mission with Caligo, I'm in." The woman on the other end was surprised. "Are you talking about the strategy for the 26th floor of the tower? I was thinking of sending Ji Hun-hui, since you didn't want to go. That's what he was being paid for, honestly." Although other people could go in his place, Jin-Sok made it clear that he would go himself. He also asked his sister to keep an eye on Caligo, since she was more skilled in prophecy abilities. On the other end of the call, Jin-Suk's sister agreed to his request. While looking over some documents, the Solaris Guildmaster, Che Ji-se, the Golden Priestess, told her brother that she would keep an eye on Caligo when she had some spare time. She also informed her assistant, Jun-hui, "You don't need to go anymore." Annoyed, the young man in a suit shouted, "I never wanted to go in the first place." Sometime after the trip, Rabin arrived at Caligo's office. Bowing, the security guard informed her that the guildmaster was already waiting. Opening the office door, Hyun Rabin entered naturally. Standing, Kang Tae-sok greeted her. "Rabin, I've been waiting for you." With a gentle smile, the girl thanked him. "I hope the time you spent wasn't in vain. We didn't have a proper conversation at the meeting because of all the issues, right? I hope this time we can have a good talk." After greeting Kang Tae-sok, Rabin looked around and found it odd that everything was so empty, since the Hunter's internet said that Tae-sok spent most of his time in that place. Confused, Rabin asked, "Kang Tae-sok, didn't you use to collect web novels and comics?" Averting his gaze, Tae-sok revealed that he had thrown everything away. A memory surfaced in Rabin's mind. A day when Tae-sok had shown her a new novel he had bought, the story of someone who had reincarnated as a slime. He was excited about his new purchase. "Do you know how hard I searched for this?" Kang Tae-sok smiled, as if it were his greatest treasure. "I'm going to keep this for the rest of my life." To Rabin, it was ironic. In a world where everyone was obsessed with stories about hunters, Kang Tae-sok had thrown his away. After they sat down, Kang Tae-sok apologized for what had happened the day before. "I think I was too hasty in offering you a proposal to join the guild. I've changed the terms, so why don't you hear them out this time? Dodging Kang Tae, Seo's persistence, Haben expressed her confusion. What's with the way you're talking? As Taeseo looked puzzled, she explained what she found odd. Did you become a soldier or something? Why are you speaking so stiffly? You used to be the nicest guy. What happened to you? Taeseo sighed, looking down. Well, if you act too gently, people tend to look down on you. Surprised by Seo's way of thinking, Hyun Habin realized that, in a way, he was right. After a moment of silence between the two, Haben sighed, scratching his head as he heard Taeseo say that he would fix the way he spoke over time. At that moment, Haben returned to the main topic, asking him to start by stopping talking about recruitment. You know, I don't intend to become a hunter. Kang Taeseo reassured her. You don't have to become a hunter. Just putting your name on the register is enough. You don't have to go into the dungeons. This time, Haben was surprised to hear the terms Kang Taeseo mention. He explained that if she joined a guild expedition to the tower, the training center would count that as a replacement for the practical classes. Hyun Habin stood up, slapping the table in complete disbelief. Does that really count as a substitute? Kang Taeseo confirmed what he said, stating that if she wanted, he would list her on the hunting team, and that way she could skip classes. Even if you're not officially a member of the guild, I'll make sure you get the same benefits as everyone else. Hearing that she could even decide later, Haben was even more incredulous. She couldn't understand why Kang Taeseo was offering her so many benefits. It seemed suspicious. Thinking that he must be up to something, Haben took a sip of the tea that had been served. However, as she drank the tea, she smiled cheerfully. So what if he's up to something? Being able to skip classes legally is amazing. And so, the protagonist would go all the way to the final screen just to avoid the training classes. At the entrance to the floor, news reports were taking place while hunters waited outside the warning barriers. A reporter holding a microphone was being filmed. Today marks the beginning of the joint operation between Caligo and Solaris. With the two strongest guilds in Korea joining forces, everyone wants to take a closer look. A group was checking their equipment while going over strategies. In a corner of the clearing, in front of the giant tree, Haben sat with a cup in her hands. She was amazed by so many people gathered in the same place. Next to her, someone who overheard commented, "The final screen is more dangerous than other dungeons, but the rewards are also better. High risk, high reward. That's why they revised the laws to prevent civilians from approaching without special permission, so that dangerous incidents would stop happening." Sipping her tea, Haben nodded at what the man beside her explained. However, even so, Jisuk was still confused. How did you get here? And what about the training center? But Haben simply ignored these questions. Jisuk wanted to roll his eyes, remembering that Solaris and Caligo were going to the 26th floor. Curious, Haben asked if the place was really so dangerous that it required both guilds. Jisuk revealed that, in part, yes, but that there was a fork in the dungeon. He explained that one path led to the Dark King's secret vault, while the other led to the boss room. Each guild would take a different path to find out which one was correct. Haben showed her surprise upon hearing how the 26th floor worked, but this only made Jisuk irritated, to the point of reminding her of his question. Hey, but how did you get here? The girl asked him not to worry, since she was only listed for convenience and would just sit and watch her dramas. Jisuk was surprised and asked, "So you're only here because this replaces your practical class?" While Jisuk was arguing with Hyun Haben, two members of his guild ran toward him. "Vice Guild Master, what are you doing here? We've been looking for you. Come quickly." Against his will, Jisuk was taken away by the two hunters, while Haben waved at him, wishing him good luck. At the same time, Hyun Habin heard an irritated voice. The guildmaster decided to send a rookie parachuting into the final round. What a great idea! A little further ahead, an angry man was grinding his teeth because of Haben's presence. The girl, who didn't even care about the stairs, noticed that everyone was at their limit and wondered if she was the cause of so much nervousness. Sometime later, a few staff members removed the protective barriers from the path while asking everyone to get ready to enter the dungeon. Hurried shouts of orders echoed everywhere. "Stand by, team. Please remain in your positions. Be careful near the back entrance. There's a cliff behind it. So, stand by, members. Please be careful." Curious, Haben watched everyone getting ready, and someone caught her attention. Jisuk signaled to her with his eyes, asking her not to try anything stupid and to stay where she was. What worried Haben was that Choi Jisuk wasn't reacting to a certain thing. That's why she wondered if she was the only one who could see a glitch window. It looked more like an item that should have been there was short-circuiting. Pointing at the glitch, Haben asked Jiajiao if he could see it. However, Jiajiao's response was confused. "What are you talking about?" Surprised, Haben tried to point at the glitch, but as soon as she touched it, something happened. A notification popped up for her. An error has been detected for the first time since the creation of the kill screen, and as a result, you have acquired the hidden title Bug Hunter, which has granted you the passive skill Error Vision. allowing you to detect errors that exist in the world. Haben cheered happily. So now I have a skill that's not just that void or something like that? Jiajiao was shocked at how she referred to such an important skill. Hey, that's an amazing skill, one of the best in the world. However, Haben quickly cut off Jiajiao's complaint, asking if he wasn't curious about her new skill, since error detection allowed her to see the existing errors in the world. Opening the skill information, Haben said she had planned to watch some dramas, but investigating a new skill was much more fun. Looking around from side to side, Haben searched for a place where no one was watching. Walking to the edge of a cliff next to the safety fence, she wondered if she had gone far enough. Worried, Jiajiao pointed out that they weren't that far from the crowd. However, with a mischievous smile, Haben said that this was the perfect spot. Haben grabbed Jiajiao with her hands while Jiajiao tried to break free, complaining. Holding on to Jiajiao, Haben simply jumped into the cliff ahead. Jiajiao's scream echoed all the way down as they fell into the dark abyss. Sometime later, Jasok, who was with Park Taeseo, received the news that a member of the expedition had fallen into the abyss. The team member who brought the information said that the person was in the waiting group, but disappeared for a moment and fell. Jasok couldn't believe that someone who was supposed to just stand still had fallen into the abyss they had been warned to be careful of. Worried, he asked what they should do. However, Park Taeseo said that since they had already entered the dungeon, they couldn't go back to rescue the person, confident that she should be fine since she was unawakened. Curious, Jae-sok asked who had fallen, and both his and Park Taeseo's expressions turned grim when they heard the name Hyun Haben. Unexpectedly for the man who brought the news, Park Taeseo said that they should first complete the dungeon before rescuing her. Jasok agreed with him, asking everyone to start moving. Gritting his teeth, Jasok wondered if Hyun Haben was so bored that she threw herself into the abyss. Curious, he wondered if there was something down there that caught her interest. At that very moment, a smile appeared in Haben's eyes as she used error vision. In front of the girl, a gigantic flaw appeared, making her excited to find out what it was. As soon as she passed through the flaw, Haben entered a completely different world. The ground was entirely blue, and soft-toned auroras borealis filled the sky, making the scenery brilliantly magical. As soon as they entered, Haben and Jiajiao received a notification. You have entered an unknown subspace. A skill was created due to your unique action. The skill window displayed the new skill Subspace Entry, an active type skill that allowed entry into a subspace through an error rift. At a certain point, the window showed that she could access the 15th floor of the final screen. Confused, Haben believed that place displayed all the errors in the world and that she could move through space whenever she wanted. Astonished by the discovery, Jiajiao was left speechless. I can't believe you found something like this. What kind of person are you? Ignoring Jiajiao's surprise, Haben tried to check if it really worked. Walking a bit further, Haben found a new error, which led to the 26th floor. Wanting just a quick peek at that floor, Haben pressed the confirm button. Immediately, an energy appeared and sucked the protagonist through a hole in space. The brightness of that portal was immense, making Haben raise her hand in front of her eyes to shield herself. Seconds later, Haben was thrown out of the wormhole, landing inside the 26th floor. Managing a soft landing, Hyun Haben looked around after the shock she had. Looking around, she found terrifying gargoyle statues. New notifications appeared for Hyun Haben. You are in the boss room of the 26th floor, the Dark King's office dungeon. Congratulations, you are the first human to reach the boss room of the 26th floor. Haben was surprised to see that she really was in a dark office, and even more so for having skipped all the stages and gone straight to that room. Suddenly, a dark energy accompanied by a sinister voice appeared. Who dares to step into my domain? Haben turned around when she realized that the owner of the voice was behind her. A muscular being with horns on the sides of his head, red eyes, and a third eye on his chest appeared, bringing with him a dog with multiple heads that drooled at the sight of a juicy human. His name was Crixia, the King of Darkness, the first of the 7 kings, the King of Pride. Surprised, Haben stared at Crixia. Ah, so you're the boss. Seeing just one person, the King of Pride snorted. I don't know how a rat got in here, but you are quite audacious. Crixia unleashed his hounds, who barked loudly and charged at Hyun Haben. Extending her hand, Rabin summoned the usurper sword Arizar. She struck the 3-headed dog with the sword, sending it flying. With a serious look, Rabin didn't dare hold back. Flexing her ankles, she gathered momentum, shattering the ground beneath her feet. She charged forward, swinging her sword to strike Cerberus with a heavy blow, eliminating it with a burst of energy. Part of Cerberus simply flew over the Pride King's shoulder and slammed into a wall with force, leaving Crixia in disbelief. The Pride King looked back, still trying to understand what had just happened. Rabin realized she had overdone it. Ah, I just wanted to talk. You guys were the ones who started this. The boss with the pig-like face still couldn't grasp the situation he was in and broke out in a cold sweat as he stammered, "What happened?" Hyun Rabin quickly snapped him out of his stupor. "What are you doing? Aren't you going to attack?" With a provocative look, Robin rested her sword on one shoulder and, with her other hand, beckoned Chrysia to join the fight. Meanwhile, as they walked through the dungeon, the man who had complained about Hyun Rabin's presence kept grumbling. "A quitter right at the start. That's why you shouldn't bring rookies along. Couldn't you have foreseen this kind of accident?" Hearing the complaint, King Taizeo simply ignored it. That made the man even more irritated. As a senior, he didn't like being ignored. His anger at King Taizeo for bringing a rookie into the dungeon just because she was his friend made him grit his teeth. Smiling, he looked at a companion and gave a nod. He planned, right there in the dungeon, to put an end to King Taiseo's arrogance and knock him down from his position as guild leader. Sometime later, a being who had just woken up found himself face to face with a girl, Hyun Rabin, talking to him. Hey, open your eyes." Crixia, who had been buried in the wall, wondered what was going on. "Who are you? Where did you come from?" Pointing her sword at the King of Pride, Rabin asked if she really needed to explain. However, afraid, the king who had lost his pride told her to do whatever she thought was best. Rabin asked Crixia if this was a place where you could only leave after defeating the dungeon boss. Sweating, the King of Pride confirmed that it was. This made Hyun Rabin grip her sword tightly, frightening the pig monster, who tried to survive at any cost. "We can end this without you attacking me. I can just surrender and move to another floor." Curious, Rabin asked what would happen to the reward if he surrendered. Regarding the reward, Crixia asked her to let him out of the wall so they could talk about it. Soon, various weapons such as swords, daggers, and spears were laid out on the table, along with precious jewels that could only be found in dungeons. With a smile, Crixia asked her to choose whatever she wanted from the items on the table. On the table, among the various items, was the Sword of Vanity, a legendary level weapon that provided 30 attack power points. There were also the Bracers of Arrogance, which provided defense, and the Necklace of Vanity, which had 15 charm effect points. The amount of stats the items provided did not catch Rabin's attention. "Only 50 points? These items are trash. You're not deliberately hiding the good stuff, are you?" Crixia was shocked by the question. "I'm not. These are real treasures." The King of Pride couldn't believe that someone could consider items that increased a person's stats by 50 points to be trash. Even triple S-rank hunters only had about 200 attack points. Kirishia even cried at the contempt. "They really are good, I swear." However, Rabin insisted that they were all useless to her. Since nothing seemed to satisfy her, the King of Pride asked what it was that she supposedly wanted. Meanwhile, Jisiak and Kangtae, Seo's groups had arrived at the spot where they would part ways. With a fork in the path ahead, Jisok announced that they would split up there, and that if the boss fight was still ongoing when the secret room was cleared, the groups would join forces to face it. As the groups began to split up, the elder of Kangtae, Seo's guild, smiled, since everything was going according to plan. Whispering, he reminded his team, "You remember the plan, right? When we reach the boss room, we'll push Kangtae Seo inside and lock him in alone." Worried, a masked rogue asked the man named Hwang Maro what would happen if Kangtae Seo defeated the boss and made it out alive. Hwang Maro reassured him, since not even the number 1 ranker, Fiddies, had managed to get that far yet. Maro believed that if, by any chance, Taiseo managed to defeat the boss, he would be exhausted from the fight, so they could deal with him afterward. Kang Tai, Seo's careless way of walking made Maro confident that he had no idea what was about to happen. His world was about to collapse. Sometime later, Kang Tae, Seo's guild, arrived at a huge wooden door reinforced with steel. Kang Tae Seo walked up to the door and opened it, letting the light from the boss room spill into the area of the dungeon where he was. Immediately, Hwang Maro gave the signal for the traitors to act. The masked young man used his strike ability to destabilize the ground beneath Kang Tae Seo. A mage also moved, casting a paralysis spell. A third traitor also used an ability, a backstab attack spell. The combination of the 3 abilities caught Kang Tae Seo by surprise. The hunter, who was still opening the boss room door, was caught off guard. Inside the boss room, the office of the Dark King. Hyun Rabim sat authoritatively on the throne, crossing his legs and arms with a disinterested look, asking about the item Karishia was carrying. "Is that really the best you have?" In the hand of the King of Pride was a secret manual of the Dark King, a priceless grade item that allowed one to acquire a skill possessed by the Dark King. Sweating nervously, Karishia replied, "Of course this is the best. You can even gain my abilities." However, with a suspicious look, Rabim asked why the item was so dirty, as if it hadn't been stored with care. Curious, Rabim asked if Karishia at least had any good abilities, since she hadn't seen him use any. Karishia was upset, since she was the one who hadn't allowed him to use any. He hadn't had time to use them. With nothing else to do, Hyun Rabim decided to trust him and took the book. Since she was very busy, she put the book in her inventory. She didn't want to meet up with the dungeon raid group. Thinking about going back to watch her dramas, Hyun grabbed her phone. She discovered that there was no internet signal inside the dungeon. Annoyed, she started to complain, remembering that at least at the dungeon entrance there was some signal, even if it was weak. While watching the girl complain, Carisia wondered when she would leave. Curious, the protagonist asked the King of Pride, "Carisia, do you have any item that lets you use Wi-Fi or mobile data inside the dungeon? That would be useful. I'm desperate for it right now." However, the boar-faced monster didn't even know what she was talking about. With no other choice, Rabim decided to just check after leaving the dungeon, so she looked for the error portal. As soon as she said goodbye, Carisia bowed her head at a 90-degree angle, shouting, "Have a safe trip." Just as Hyun was about to leave the dungeon through the error portal, she heard a noise. Both she and Carisia were startled when an explosion came from the door. Hyun screamed in shock, and a powerful shockwave hit her. However, it didn't cause any harm. She was stunned when she looked at the door and saw someone. Has the attack team already arrived? The burst of energy that occurred pulled all the members of the Caligus Guild into the boss room. Coughing, Hwang Maro asked what was going on. The mage beside him looked around anxiously. "This is the boss room. We're in the boss room now." Hyun, hiding behind the boss's desk, covered her mouth to keep quiet. She was worried that she had almost been caught. Glancing out of the corner of her eye, she saw the Caligus team and wondered why they were already there. Wanting to get out of there quickly, Rabin spotted a glitch on the floor nearby. However, before she could go through the glitch portal, she heard a man shout, "Where is Kang Tae-seo?" The mage revealed that he thought that bastard Kang Tae-seo had planned to throw them into the boss room, knowing they were after him. Worried, the masked man asked Hwang Maro what they should do. They couldn't believe that instead of trapping Kang Tae-seo, they were the ones who had fallen into a trap. Suddenly, a woman's dark voice echoed throughout the boss room. "Say that again. So you all are monsters worse than the boss here, aren't you?" Everyone turned to see a woman rising from behind the table. With an intimidating look, Hyun questioned who they were trying to get rid of. The boss room was closed, and outside, Kang Tae-seo let out a sigh. It really happened just as expected. He had been hearing the others' discontent with him for a long time. Looking at the door, Kang Tae-seo wondered if this was really what they had planned. The leader of the Caligus Guild had already faced numerous betrayals. Over the past 5 years, he had gotten used to it. Betrayal, envy, people trying to use him. Ignoring everything that had happened, Kang Tae-seo opened the skill window. He had 2 abilities. Position Swap, which exchanged his current position with that of an ally or enemy, and Mirror Shadow, which reflected the damage received back to the attacker. With the combo of these 2 abilities, Tae-seo gave those who attacked him exactly what they deserved. To him, it was 2 birds with a single cage. He could wipe out the annoying factions that had formed within his guild. Clenching his fist furiously, Hyun demanded, "Say it again, who were you trying to attack?" Hwang Maro was shocked to see the girl standing in front of him. She was none other than the rookie that the hunter Kang Tae-seo had brought to the final screen dungeon, his school friend or something like that. The masked man tried to warn Hwang Maro about the girl. She was the one who had fallen off the cliff. None of them could understand why she was there, and they turned the question to Hwang Maro, who knew even less. Furious, Hwang Maro pointed at Hyun. "So that's what happened. You were with Kang Tae-seo from the very beginning." Rabin was confused, not understanding what she was being accused of. Furious, Hwang Maro accused her of having faked her fall into the abyss and waited for them there, plotting with Kang Tae-seo to trap them in the boss room. Confused, Hyun asked why she would do such a thing. Ranting, Hwang Maro accidentally revealed everything. "Because you found out about our plan to betray him and decided to strike first." Maro's words served as a confession. "So you admit that you tried to attack him and called it an accident, right?" This time, Hwang Maro couldn't answer the question. Satisfied? Rabin smiled. However, her smile turned into a dark look, as intimidating as a sea of crimson aura. "You planned a betrayal and now you're acting like you're the victims?" Laughing, Maro asked what she could possibly do if it were true, since she was just a rookie. Hwang Maro knew all the top rankers in the country, and there was no one named Hyun. He knew that Kang Tae-seo was in first place, followed by Chae-jis. Then came his brother Ji-sok, as well as Baek Na-myeon and Jun-hoin. After them, he was next 6th in the entire country. He was confident that there was no way someone unknown could be stronger than him. Arrogantly, he boasted, "Girl, you don't know the world. What you're planning won't work." Taking control of the situation, Hwang Maro called his companions to deal with the girl so they could go on to attack Kang Tae-seo outside. Multiple energies surged forth and an explosion shot toward Hyun, engulfing her. The entire scene was destroyed, and confused by not seeing the girl, a mage asked if they had managed to get her. Hwang Maro grew furious when he saw the doubt in his eyes. Smoke filled the entire boss room, making it impossible to figure out what had happened. However, a voice emerged from within the smoke. "Are you done talking nonsense yet?" Huang Maro and the others were shocked. Fear appeared in their eyes and their screams echoed through the boss room. Meanwhile, Crixia, the real boss, was hiding, afraid that the attacks might hit him by mistake. A few minutes later, Rabin, without even breaking a sweat, sighed. Having tied up the four who had threatened Kang Taeseo's life, she asked the King of Pride what they should do. Looking closely at the four, Crixia asked if he should finish them off. Winking at Hyun Rabin, Crixia revealed some rather suspicious instruments. He was a professional at extracting information. While the four traitors trembled in fear, he smiled brightly. "I know every pain point, from the tips of the toes to the tips of the fingers." Huang Maro cried out in fear, "Please, spare us. There are many people who depend on me. I have a family." Rabin was surprised, though sarcastically. "So now you care about someone else's life?" With a look that could make someone tremble to their bones, she stared Huang Maro down as she bent over. "It's funny how you wanted to eliminate someone, but now you value life." Rabin swallowed hard, remembering how Taeseo had lost his family and had no one left. Standing up, she stated, "Kang Taeseo must have been hurt by that. Is that why he changed?" Those on the ground were surprised to hear the girl's questions and couldn't believe she was talking about the Kang Taeseo they knew, rather than someone with the same name. In Hyun Rabin's mind, Kang Taeseo was a poor little boy who cried about everything and needed her to protect him. That's why she declared, "He's my precious friend, you know." Huang gritted his teeth, wondering when Kang Taeseo had formed such a close friendship. He wouldn't have planned to go against Taeseo if he had known about her existence. Furious, Hyun Rabin kept declaring, "I can't even skip work without him knowing, damn it." This time, the four of them were confused. Little by little, they began to accept the fate they were about to face. Hyun Rabin's aura, incredibly intimidating, made that clear. Her deep voice sent shivers down the four's spines. "I think you deserve something more than just a beating." Once again, the four of them screamed until they were out of breath. With her hand outstretched, holding her middle finger with her thumb, Rabin counted 1, 2, 3. On 3, she flicked her finger with tremendous force, unleashing her energy onto the forehead of the man in front of her. Hit on the forehead by the flick, he passed out. Seeing the man in such a pitiful state, Crixia made him drink a potion so he could get back up again. Approaching Huang Maro, who had already taken a few of her flicks, Rabin asked how many hit points he had left. Hurriedly, Maro replied, 10, only 10. "If I get attacked again, I won't survive." To solve this problem, Rabin grabbed a healing potion, startling Huang Maro, who would have rather not go on living. Laughing, Rabin scratched the back of his neck. "I'm not going to eliminate anyone. I like Taeseo, but not enough to do that." Bending down to look at one of the men who had fallen to the ground, Rabin remarked that there was a big problem. Placing her hand on her chin, she thought out loud, "I ended up revealing myself because this was about Taeseo, but if these guys go around talking about what they saw, I'm screwed." Zhao Zhao approached, mocking Hyun Rabin, who had revealed her identity on her own this time. Thinking of something, Rabin asked Crixia if he had any useful ability to solve the problem. The boar-faced monster was surprised and listened to Hyun Rabin's request. "I want something that can erase memories or a curse that prevents someone from revealing what happened." Crixia stated that it would be difficult to obtain something that could erase memories, but he did in fact have a curse that prevented people from revealing certain matters. As soon as Hyun Rabin asked what the name of the curse was, the King of Pride took on a menacing expression. "It's called Curse of Silence. It's a curse that the Dark King used to employ. If the cursed target tries to speak, write, or even remember the designated secret, they will suffer immense pain." Crixia stated that, with this curse, no one would be able to reveal what the girl wanted to keep hidden. Even so, Hyun Rabin was worried that they might somehow be able to remove the curse. Crixia then revealed that ancient curses could only be broken by sorcerers of the same level as the caster, meaning that people weaker than him would not be able to break them. This made Rabin worried, since someone stronger than him could show up. The worried comment made Crixia furious. "What's the problem? There isn't a single person stronger than me." At that very moment, he remembered what had happened 30 minutes earlier and how he had turned into a painting on the wall. He ended up looking at the same spot where he had been pinned and fell silent, trying to avoid being thrown there again. Rabin sighed, as she had no other choice. She would have to do it alone, something possible thanks to the secret tome Crixia had given her earlier. After Hyun Rabin resolved the whole problem, Crixia said her goodbyes. "Well, now I'll be heading to another floor." However, she looked at him with a curious gaze that made him freeze. Trembling, he asked what she was staring at so intently. Unexpectedly, she smiled, leaving Crixia confused by her words. "You really are a cool Dark King, aren't you? You offered to help me in everything. If I run into you on another floor, let's hang out. It was nice meeting you." The being of darkness didn't know how to react, and, knowing he couldn't refuse, just lowered his boar face and nodded. Meanwhile, outside the boss room, Kang Tae-seo was waiting. After 30 minutes, he figured that everyone who had been thrown inside had already been eliminated. Even though he didn't care about Hwang Maro's group, as the leader of the King Guild, Kang Tae-seo couldn't let the guys from Solaris find out about Caligo's internal conflicts. Suddenly, a notification popped up in front of him, with celebratory balloons. An unexpected situation had occurred. The boss from the 26th floor has moved up to the 50th floor. The 26th floor will be considered cleared. Congratulations! Humanity has conquered the 26th floor for the first time. Kang Tae-seo frowned, seeing the floor cleared so quickly and in such a strange way. He had never seen a boss monster relocation before. Wondering why this had happened, he opened the boss room door. Surprise appeared in his eyes when he saw what was inside. Hwang Maro and his group were on the floor, curled up like sleeping bags. The confusion in Kang Tae-seo's mind grew enormous. He couldn't process what he was seeing. Suddenly, a hurried shout came from the hallway behind him. Mr. Kang Tae-seo, having rushed to the boss room so quickly that he was sweating, Jisok asked if everything was all right. He wanted to understand what had happened for the boss to reach the 50th floor, how they had managed to do it and so quickly, since his own group hadn't even made it to the secret room yet. While he was curiously asking what had happened, Jis-seok's group looked into the room. Seeing the four tied up on the floor, Jis-seok asked what had happened. Kang Tae-seo was quick-witted and gave a brief answer. The boss was stronger than we thought. Changing the subject, Kang Tae-seo asked if they should check on the girl who had fallen. Finally, Jis-seok remembered Hyun Robin. Jis-seok apologized to his team, saying he would go after the girl who had fallen into the abyss because he knew her. One of his companions went with him. Staying behind, a woman from the Solaris Guild showed her relief that the battle was over and nodded at her vice, leader's instructions. Watching the four leave, Kang Tae-seo was left alone once again. This way, he was able to enter the boss's hall to check what had happened. On one of the bookshelves, there was a candelabrum with a few candles. When he touched the candelabrum, Tae-seo used a skill, Shadow Resurrection. The shadow cast by the candles began to move and, together with their light, transformed into a sphere of fire and shadows under the Awakened One's command. In this way, he found out what he wanted to know. In the outside world, news of the clearing of the 26th floor was spreading, becoming the fastest clear in history. On a television program, a journalist explained that, normally, the final screen's floors took anywhere from 3 days to a month to be cleared, but this time it had only taken a few hours. One of the people on the show stated that this must be because the boss wasn't defeated. A young man holding an information card confirmed the question. Apparently, that's the strangest part. They say this is the first time the boss has moved to the 50th floor. This is an unprecedented event. After watching the news, a young man sitting at his office desk turned off the television. Kang Tae-seo was still confused. Even after so much investigation, he still hadn't figured out what had happened in the boss room. He tried to question Hwang Maro, but every time he tried to speak, a powerful energy surrounded him, preventing him from uttering even a single word. His screams were desperate, frightening even Kang Tae-seo. Seeing this happen, Kang Tae-seo asked an awakened researcher if he knew what had happened to Hwang Maro. To the bald awakened, that must have been the effect of the Dark King's curse. However, he revealed that they couldn't remove it, as this was a curse that went beyond human powers. Upon discovering that the Dark King had deliberately cursed the four of them, Kang Tae-seo wondered why. After thinking for so long, he used one of his abilities, Shadow Resurrection, which gave life to a specific shadow so he could summon it. In his hand, a dark energy formed the very shadow he had taken from the boss's room. He spoke directly to it. "You are the shadow that was in the Dark King's office, right? So you must have seen what happened. Tell us what really happened in that place." If you enjoyed today's recap and want more manhwa content, subscribe to the channel. We're starting this journey now, and I hope that together we can strengthen this new community. So go ahead and like the video, comment for future parts, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time.